3 days after my husband's funeral, I returned to our seaside mansion, holding an envelope proving he had secretly left me full control of an $11 million shipping empire and a trust no court could touch. But before I stepped into the dining room, I heard my son whisper, "Once the doctor signs the papers, put her in the facility immediately." Then my daughter-in-law replied coldly, "Just make sure she never opens the basement safe before that meeting." This story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we begin, leave a comment for me. Have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting your family? Your perspective might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Some details have been adjusted for storytelling purposes. What matters most is the message this story carries. My daughter-in-law whispered it to someone in the third row loud enough that I heard it from the front. She can never know what's in the basement. I stood at the altar of St. Philip's Episcopal Church, arranging white lilies around my husband's photograph, and felt the words land like ice water down my spine. My name is Harriet Caldwell. I'm 61 years old, and until 3 years ago, I ran operations for one of the largest private shipping companies on the eastern seaboard. Today, I'm just a widow trying to understand why only 11 people came to my husband's funeral. St. Philip's holds 200. The organ played Bach's Come Sweet Death, a piece Edmund never would have chosen, and the sound echoed off empty pews. My son, Thane Caldwell, 38. Vice President of Corporate Development, stood near the entrance in an expensive suit that hung wrong on his shoulders, checking his watch every 3 minutes, like his father's funeral was a meeting he was late for. Reverend Leland Sinclair, who'd known Edmund for 30 years, delivered the eulogy with genuine sorrow, one of the few people in that church who actually mourned. Edmund Caldwell served this community with integrity for 40 years, he said. 40 years building an empire, and 11 people came to say goodbye. I counted them. Thane and his wife, Vivian Shelton, 34, who sat in the third row wearing black Valentino, and an expression I couldn't read, not grief, something sharper. My granddaughter, Wren Caldwell, 17, sat alone in the back pew with her grandfather's careful eyes, watching everything her parents thought no one was watching. Beatrix Harlow, the only board member who attended. 3 uncomfortable men from Edmund's Rotary Club. Simone Shelton, 62. Vivian's mother and former corporate attorney, dressed in black Chanel with the posture of someone who'd spent 40 years winning courtroom battles. And 2 people I didn't recognize. Vivian leaned close to her mother and whispered something that made Simone's mouth tighten. That's when I heard it. She can never know what's in the basement, not until after. "Keep your voice down," Simone said, cold and quiet. "We handle this my way." My hands froze on the lily stems. The basement. The wine cellar Edmund sealed 22 years ago with a biometric lock and instructions never to open it without him. What was down there that my daughter-in-law thought I couldn't know? I looked up and found Vivian staring at me across the church. Our eyes met. Hers widened calculation replaced by momentary panic, and she turned back to her mother, whispering faster. I read her lips. She heard me. The organ shifted to a recessional hymn. Reverend Sinclair invited us to the fellowship hall. No one moved. That's when Thane slipped out the side door. Through the tall church windows, I watched my son cross the parking lot toward a man standing beside a silver Mercedes. Dr. Bradford Greer, 58, wore wire-rimmed glasses and the kind of gentle smile designed to make elderly patients feel safe, except he wasn't here as a mourner. He handed my son a manila folder. They spoke for 90 seconds, I counted. Then Thane tucked the folder inside his jacket and returned to the church. Dr. Greer drove away without ever paying his respects. When did my son become a stranger who brings doctors to his father's funeral? I turned from the window and found Wren watching me from the back pew, her phone at waist-level screen angled toward the parking lot. Recording. She met my gaze and gave a small, deliberate nod. Whatever just happened out there, Wren had documented it. Smart girl. Edmund's granddaughter through and through. The fellowship hall smelled like bad coffee and pity. I accepted condolences from people who hadn't known Edmund well enough to mourn him properly. Beatrix squeezed my hand and promised to call. The Rotary Club men left quickly, visibly relieved to escape. Vivian and Simone stood in the corner, heads together, speaking too low to hear. Thane approached with the manila folder tucked under his arm. "Mother," he said. "Not Mom, just Mother," delivered like a business greeting. "We should talk. About the estate. About arrangements." "Your father's been dead 3 days," I said. "Which is why we need to discuss practical matters." He glanced at Vivian. She nodded. "Dr. Greer mentioned he'd be available for a consultation. Grief counseling. It's very normal." Normal? Grief counseling from a psychiatrist my son met in a parking lot during his father's funeral. "I don't need counseling," I said. "Mother." His voice dropped gentle in a way that felt rehearsed. "You've been through trauma. Losing Dad so suddenly. It would be responsible to have someone evaluate what?" He hesitated, just for a second. But I saw it, the crack in the script, the moment he'd said more than he meant to. "Your well-being," he finished. "Dr. Greer specializes in geriatric patients. He could ensure you're stable." Stable. The word hung between us like a threat. 3 days ago, I lost my husband. Today I realized I never really knew my son. "I appreciate your concern," I said, my voice colder than I'd ever used with him before. "But I'm fine. We'll discuss the estate when I'm ready." Thane's jaw tightened. He glanced at Vivian again. She shook her head minutely. "Not yet," the gesture said. "Don't push yet." "Of course," Thane said. "Whenever you're ready, Mother." He walked away to join his wife and mother-in-law by the window. They spoke in a tight cluster. Vivian gesturing sharply, Simone's expression ice hard. Planning something. Coordinating. My son, my daughter-in-law, and a former corporate attorney discussing me at my husband's funeral like I was a problem to be solved. The church emptied. Reverend Sinclair touched my shoulder and promised prayers. The caterers packed up untouched sandwich trays. Wren appeared at my elbow with her phone showing timestamp stamped video, Thane crossing the parking lot. Dr. Greer handing over the folder. 90 seconds of conversation captured in perfect detail. "I thought you'd want to see this," she said quietly, but my mind was already somewhere else. Fixed on one word: basement. Whatever Vivian was hiding down there, whatever Thane discussed with that psychiatrist, it all connected to the wine cellar Edmund sealed 22 years ago. The cellar I was never supposed to open. The cellar Vivian thought I couldn't know about. Not until after what? I looked at Wren's phone, then at my son standing with his conspirators across the room. "Send me that video," I told my granddaughter. "And then stay quiet. I need to go home and find out what they're so afraid of me discovering." The basement stairs creak under my weight at 2 in the afternoon when everyone assumes I'm resting upstairs in my grief. I'm not resting, I'm hunting. The wine cellar spans the entire foundation, 300 square feet of temperature-controlled storage Edmund designed himself. Racks of vintage bottles line the brick walls, organized with meticulous precision. The air smells like oak and thyme cool against my skin. I move systematically, pulling racks away from walls, testing floor stones. The bottles clink softly as I work 1987 Bordeaux, 1992, Burgundy years of careful collection gathering dust. Behind the third rack, my fingers find it. A wall panel slightly recessed, almost invisible unless you're looking. I press, and it swings open on well-oiled hinges. The safe is professional grade, built into the brick. The dial shows no fingerprints, no signs of use in decades. Dust has settled in the grooves undisturbed. 22 years Edmund kept this from me, not hidden, protected. I try every combination I know. Our anniversary, Edmund's birthday, the company's founding date. Nothing. The dial spins smoothly, but the lock doesn't yield. "What were you afraid of, Edmund?" I whisper. "He was afraid you'd need it before you knew you needed it." I spin around, heart-hammering. A man stands at the bottom of the stairs, Irving Lockwood, 63, who'd managed our Kiowa Island marina for 30 years. But standing in my basement with an expression that isn't surprise, I realize he'd been more than an employee. He'd been Edmund's most trusted confidant. "Irving, you startled me." "I apologize." The front door was unlocked. He descends slowly, moving with the careful gait of someone who's spent decades on dock platforms. I came under the guise of paying respects, but truthfully, Mrs. Caldwell, I came because Edmund instructed me to appear exactly 1 day after his funeral. The words settle over me like a weight. Edmund instructed you 22 years ago. 22 years ago. Irving reaches into his jacket and produces a sealed manila envelope yellowed at the edges. He said if I ever saw your son meet with a psychiatrist at his funeral, I was to come here immediately. My breath catches. How did you... I was there yesterday, in the back row. Edmund asked me to attend and observe. Irving's voice is steady. He told me what to watch for, a manila folder, a parking lot meeting. Dr. Greer specifically. The basement feels smaller suddenly. He told you that 22 years ago, he knew Harriet. He always knew what Thane was. How long had Edmund known that one day I would stand here betrayed by my own son, searching for answers in the dark? Irving extends the envelope. Edmund's handwriting covers the front for Harriet, September 18, 2001. Do not open before my death. September 18, 2001. 1 day after Thane's 16th birthday. What's in it, I ask. A key. Instructions. And a name an attorney Edmund worked with outside your family's knowledge. Irving presses it into my hands. The paper is thick, sealed with red wax bearing Edmund's signet ring. He said you'd be alone when you needed this most. He said your family would come for everything. I turn the envelope over, feeling its weight. The seal is unbroken, preserved for over 2 decades. What's in the safe, Irving? 22 years of insurance. Everything you'll need when they try to take what's yours. Irving glances at the safe. Edmund built defensive legal structures through attorneys you've never met, set up financial firewalls you don't know exist. He spent 2 decades preparing for this exact moment, your son attempting to have you declared incompetent and seizing control of the estate. Incompetent. The word hits like a slap. That's what Dr. Greer specializes in, geriatric competency evaluations. Yes, Edmund predicted it, down to the specialist's field. My husband has been dead for 2 days, but he's been protecting me for 22 years. I break the seal carefully, wax crumbling in my fingers. Inside, a small brass key falls into my palm, warm from being carried against Irving's chest, and a note card in Edmund's handwriting. Harriet. If you're reading this, our son has become what I feared. The safe contains evidence, financial records, and instructions. Trust no one who wasn't at my funeral. The attorney's name is Dalton Pierce. He knows everything. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I lived. I loved you too much to make you carry this knowledge. E. Dalton Pierce, I say. I've never heard that name. Edmund kept him separate, paid him through accounts Thane couldn't trace. Irving shifts his weightboards, creaking. Pierce has copies of everything in that safe plus legal documents your son doesn't know exist. Irrevocable trusts, power of attorney structures that can't be challenged. Edmund built a fortress around you. I look at the key in my palm, then at the safe's dial. The brass is warm, solid. Why did Edmund choose you? I ask. Why trust you with this? Irving's smile is sad. Because I saw Thane steal from the Marina cash box when he was 17. Edmund caught him too. Your son looked his father in the eye and lied. That's when Edmund knew. The basement is silent except for our breathing. Somewhere above us, the house settles wood groaning. My son walked these halls, ate at our table, grew up in this house Edmund built. And all the while, my husband was building a trap to protect me from him. Irving closes my fingers around the key. The metal is cool now, waiting. The envelope is dated September 18, 2001. I say, 1 day after Thane turned 16. Yes. What else did Edmund see? What else did our son do? Irving's expression is careful. That's something you'll need to ask Mr. Pierce. Edmund gave me the key and instructions. He gave Pierce the truth. I look at the safe, then at the key, then at Irving's face, a man who's kept my husband's secret for over 2 decades. The question isn't what's in the safe. The question is, what did Edmund know about Thane that I still don't? The address Irving gave me leads to a glass tower in Columbia's financial district, the kind of building where attorneys charge $800 an hour and never lose. I park in the underground garage and take the elevator to the 19th floor Edmund sealed envelope in my purse, alongside the brass key. The receptionist expects me. She escorts me down a hallway lined with mahogany doors to a corner conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dalton Pierce, 51 estate planning attorney, stands when I enter. He's tall, silver-haired, with the quiet authority of someone who's spent 3 decades protecting wealth from people who want to steal it. The conference table is already set with a thick file Edmund's name embossed on the spine in gold lettering. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm very sorry for your loss." His handshake is firm, professional. "Irving called ahead. I've been waiting for this meeting since your husband's death." "You've been waiting for Edmund to die. I've been waiting for the moment you'd need what he built." Pierce gestures to a leather chair. "Please, we have a great deal to discuss." I sit. The chair is expensive, the kind that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Through the windows, Columbia spreads out below us, the State House dome glinting in morning sun traffic, moving like blood through arteries. Pierce opens the file. Documents spill across the table, organized with tabs and labels. Trust agreements, corporate filings, notarized affidavits. 3 years of meticulous legal architecture. "Your husband came to me 3 years ago with a very specific request," Pierce says. "Make sure your son could never take what belongs to you." The words hit like cold water. 3 years, Edmund knew 3 years ago that Thane would. He knew long before that. 3 years ago is when he finally decided to do something about it. Pierce pulls a document from the stack. This is the Caldwell Family Irrevocable Trust, established January 15, 2021. Total assets $11 million. $11 million. The number sits between us like a shield. "What makes it irrevocable?" I ask. Pierce's smile is grim. "Everything. Once Edmund signed these papers, the trust became a separate legal entity. It cannot be altered, cannot be dissolved, cannot be accessed through guardianship, proceedings, or court orders. The assets are permanently removed from your personal estate." I lean forward, meaning even if a court declares you incompetent, which is what your son is planning with Dr. Greer, the money stays exactly where Edmund put it, beyond their reach, forever. The relief hits so hard I have to steady myself against the table. Thane's entire conspiracy is legally impossible. But from the moment he conceived it, yes. Pierce slides another document toward me. "I'm co-trustee, which means no money moves without both our signatures. Your son could have you declared incompetent, strip your voting rights, seize control of your personal accounts, and he still couldn't touch $1 of this trust. My husband died 3 days ago, but apparently he spent 3 years building walls around me that I never saw." "What about the company?" I ask. "Caldwell Maritime." Pierce's expression shifts. "That's where things get complicated." He pulls a corporate filing from the stack. "Caldwell Maritime Holdings, LLC, shareholder agreements, voting structures. You own 40% voting shares. Edmund owned 60%, which passed to you upon his death, giving you complete control." Pierce taps the document. "But the shareholder agreement includes a mental competency clause. If the board determines a majority shareholder is mentally unfit to make business decisions, they can force a sale of shares at market value." "How do they determine fitness?" "Medical evaluation by a licensed psychiatrist." Pierce's voice is careful. "Someone like Dr. Bradford Greer." The pieces click together. Thane meets with Greer at the funeral. Greer evaluates me, declares me incompetent. The board votes to force a sale. Thane buys my shares at whatever price they set. So the trust is protected, I say slowly, but the company isn't. "Correct, which means you have to be very careful how you play this." Pierce leans forward. "If you appear too competent, too aware of what they're planning, Thane can claim you're mentally unstable, paranoid, delusional. He'll push for an emergency evaluation. But if you play the grieving widow perfectly, he'll make mistakes. He'll get comfortable. And that's when we strike. How many times had I mistaken Edmund's silence for distance when he was actually constructing my salvation? You want me to pretend to be exactly what they think I am, I say. Fragile, confused, manageable. Pierce's smile is sharp. Let them think they're winning. Let Thane believe you're too grief-stricken to notice what he's doing. Meanwhile, we document everything, every conversation, every meeting with Greer, every attempt to access the trust. When they finally make their move, we bury them with evidence. I think of Vivian whispering about the basement, Thane meeting with doctors at his father's funeral, Simone's calculating expression, my family circling like vultures waiting for me to fall. How long do I have? Guardianship proceedings take 60 to 90 days if uncontested, longer if you fight. Pierce pulls out a timeline. Edmund predicted they'd wait 2 weeks after his death before filing, long enough to look respectful, short enough to claim urgency. 2 weeks from yesterday, I say. That gives me 13 days. 13 days to gather evidence, to document their conspiracy, to let them reveal themselves completely. Pierce slides one final document across the table, not a legal filing. Handwritten pages in Edmund's careful script. Personal instructions for Harriet, read only after my death. I pick up the pages, hands trembling slightly. Edmund's voice speaks from the paper. If Harriet is reading this, Thane has made his move. Let him think he's winning. Let him get comfortable. The trap only works if the mice believe the cheese is unguarded. Pierce knows what to do. Trust him. Trust yourself. You're stronger than our son ever understood. You're stronger than I ever told you. I'm sorry I couldn't say it while I lived, but I'm saying it now. You are not prey. You never were. I just made sure you'd have fangs when you finally needed them. E. I look up at Pierce, and for the first time since the funeral, I smile. My son thinks I'm prey. He has no idea Edmund turned me into the predator. The wireless pinhole camera is smaller than a shirt button, and my 17-year-old granddaughter is teaching me how to hide it in the basement ceiling. Angle it 15 degrees down, Wren says, holding her iPad to show me the feed. There, perfect view of the safe. I'm home from Columbia less than 2 hours when she appears at my bedroom door with a canvas bag full of surveillance equipment, cameras, monitors, wireless transmitters. The predator in me, newly awakened by Pierce's revelations, recognizes a useful ally when I see one. Where did you get all this? I ask. Amazon. Ordered it 2 days ago. Wren pulls out another camera, barely visible against her fingertip. Mom's been staring at that basement door like it's a vault. I figured she'd eventually go down there. You knew she'd try to break in. Wren looks at me with those careful eyes she inherited from Edmund. Grandma. I've known something was wrong since Dad brought a psychiatrist to Grandpa's funeral, so I started watching, and what I saw made me order these. She's 17 years old and already thinking 3 moves ahead. Edmund would be so proud. We work quickly, installing 3 cameras in the wine cellar, one aimed at the safe one, covering the entrance one, capturing the full room. Wren syncs everything to a monitor in my bedroom and her own iPad, setting up motion detection alerts. If anyone enters the basement, we'll know immediately, she says. Recording starts automatically. Night vision activates in low light, and everything uploads to cloud storage they can't delete. I test the feed on my bedroom monitor. The basement appears in perfect clarity, the hidden safe visible behind its wine rack panel. Thank you, I tell her. The words feel inadequate for what she's giving me, not just surveillance, but solidarity. Wren squeezes my hand. We're going to catch them, Grandma. Whatever they're planning, we're going to document everything. She leaves through the back garden gate, and I sit alone in my bedroom watching 3 camera feeds of an empty basement. Waiting. The monitor flickers to life at 2:17 in the morning. I jolt awake to the motion alert, a soft chime from my nightstand. The center screen shows movement, someone descending the basement stairs. Vivian. My daughter-in-law wears silk pajamas and latex gloves, carrying a penlight and what looks like lock-picking tools in a small leather case. The night vision feed casts her an eerie green, but the image is sharp enough to see her expression. Not greed, fear. She moves to the wine rack, systematically checking each section of brickwork around the hidden panel. Her hands tremble slightly as she tests the mortar joints, searching for triggers or releases. The penlight beam dances across the wall. I grab my phone and text Ren, "Are you watching this?" Her reply comes instantly, recording everything. I'm watching my daughter-in-law burglarize my home at 2 a.m, and all I feel is a cold, methodical satisfaction. Vivian searches for 23 minutes. She tries the safe's dial, random combinations, methodical sequences. Nothing works. She photographs the dial with her phone angles changing, zooming in on the manufacturer's mark. Then she photographs the entire brick wall, the wine racks, the ceiling beams, documenting, planning a return trip. At 2:40, she gives up and retreats upstairs. The basement goes dark again. I download the footage to an encrypted folder Pierce provided. 23 minutes of evidence. Latex gloves, lockpicks, premeditation captured in perfect clarity. Thane and Vivian are staying in the guest house on the property, the small cottage Edmund built for visiting executives. Close enough to surveil, far enough to plot. 2 nights later, she returns. This time, Vivian brings a laptop and an encrypted USB drive. She sits cross-legged in front of the safe, running what appears to be code-breaking software numbers, scrolling across her screen, attempting combinations derived from algorithms I don't understand. But it's what she pulls from her pajama pocket that makes my blood go cold. Papers, official letterhead, medical forms. I zoom the feed and freeze the frame. Even in night vision, I can read the header, Psychiatric Competency Evaluation, Dr. Bradford Greer, licensed clinical psychologist, and my name typed neatly in the patient field. I text Ren, "Need you here now." She arrives 12 minutes later, climbing through my bedroom window like she's done since she was 10 years old, sneaking in after curfew. Now she's sneaking in to help me catch her parents. "Look at this," I say, pulling up the frozen frame. Ren enhances the image on her iPad using software I didn't know existed. The letterhead sharpens. The text becomes readable. "Those are medical forms," she whispers, "with your name on them, already filled out." "Duplicate copies," I say, which means Dr. Greer gave her the templates before he evaluated me. Ren scrolls through the enhanced images reading. Her face goes pale. "They're building a paper trail to have you declared incompetent. Look at the diagnosis field, it's already checked. Moderate cognitive decline, memory impairment, inability to manage financial affairs." How long has Dr. Greer been sitting in his clinic signing blank psychiatric forms with my name already typed in? "What about the USB?" Ren asks. We watch as Vivian types on her laptop, the USB drive glowing in her computer's port. She's pulling up files, spreadsheets, documents. From this angle, we can't see the screen clearly, but her expression is focused, calculating. "Financial records," I say. "They plan to alter them. Show I've been mismanaging money, making irrational purchases. Evidence of incompetence." Ren zooms in on the medical forms, again enhancing the date field at the top of the page. Her breath catches. "Grandma, look at the date." I lean closer. The form header shows date of initial assessment September 16th, 2023. September 16th, 2 days before Edmund died. "They were building your incompetency file while Grandpa was still alive," Ren says, her voice barely audible. The room feels colder suddenly. I stare at the frozen image Vivian in night vision green caught mid-reach toward the safe pre-signed medical forms in her gloved hand, dated before I became a widow. Whatever she thinks is inside that safe, I say slowly, they've been planning to take it since before Edmund died. Ren saves the enhanced images to the encrypted folder. Evidence of premeditation, evidence of fraud, evidence of conspiracy that began while my husband still breathed. On the monitor, Vivian gives up for the night and retreats upstairs. The basement goes dark. But the footage remains time-stamped and backed up, showing exactly what they are and exactly what they planned. The question I can't answer, what triggered this conspiracy before Edmund's death? What did they know was coming that made them start building my incompetency file 2 days before he died? The phone rings at 3:47 in the morning, the screen displaying a number that's nothing but encrypted symbols and a country code I don't recognize. I'm still awake watching the surveillance footage for the 4th time, cataloging every detail of Vivian's break-ins. The ringtone cuts through the dark like an alarm. I answer without thinking. Hello. The voice that responds is digitally distorted, male-educated, speaking with the careful precision of someone delivering prepared testimony. Mrs. Caldwell, you don't know me, but I know what your son is planning, and I know you have approximately 6 weeks before it's too late to stop him. My heart hammers against my ribs. Who is this? How did you get this number? The less you know about me right now, the safer we both are. Just listen. The distortion makes every word sound hollow mechanical. Are you alone? Is this line secure? I glance at my bedroom door. Locked. The surveillance monitors glow softly in the corner. I'm alone. Good. I'm going to give you information you'll need to verify later. Don't interrupt. Don't try to trace this call. Just record everything I say. I reach for my phone's voice recorder with shaking hands. I'm recording. Dr. Bradford Greer received $50,000 in cash on September 22nd. Wire transfer from Caldwell Maritime corporate account, routing number ending in 4782. The transfer was coded as Consulting Services Project Succession, Bank of Charleston Downtown Branch. The routing number is correct. I recognize it immediately, our corporate operations account that Thane manages. That's how do you know our corporate routing numbers? The distorted voice continues as if I haven't spoken. Dr. Greer deposited $35,000 in his personal account the following morning. The remaining $15,000 was divided between 2 offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Account numbers and routing documentation will be in the file I'm sending you. What file? Who are you? Dr. Greer's next scheduled evaluation of you is October 3rd at 10 a.m. He'll arrive at your home with standard cognitive assessment materials. He'll ask you to count backwards from 100 by sevens. Identify common objects, recall 3 words after a 5-minute delay. You'll pass every test. It won't matter. His report is already written. The clinical detail chills me more than the distortion. This person has seen the report, has access to Dr. Greer's files, because I've been documenting Dr. Greer's fraudulent activities for 3 years. The voice says, answering my unspoken question, your son just gave me the case I've been waiting for. 6 weeks, 42 days between me and a locked psychiatric ward where my son controls every dollar I have. What case? I ask. What are you documenting? Adult guardianship fraud. Dr. Greer has signed false psychiatric evaluations for 11 elderly patients in the past 4 years. Each time a family member gains conservatorship, liquidates assets, and pays Dr. Greer a percentage. Your son is the 12th. The words settle over me like ice. You're telling me this is a pattern. He's done this before. 11 times. Every one of them is documented. Bank transfers, forged medical records testimony from family members who realized too late what happened. But I couldn't prove Dr. Greer was taking payment until now. Your son was careless. He used a corporate account with traceable routing. I gripped the phone tighter. Why are you telling me this? Who are you? The involuntary conservatorship papers are already drafted. The voice continues. Pre-signed medical affidavits dated September 20th. They're in Dr. Greer's office safe right now waiting. Filing appointment is scheduled for November 7th at 9 a.m. Charleston County Courthouse. November 7th, 6 weeks from Edmund's funeral. I count the days automatically 42. Why November 7th specifically? South Carolina guardianship law creates certain procedural windows that favor early filing. If they file by November 7th, they can argue for expedited proceedings. If they wait, you gain significantly more time to mount a legal defense time enough for forensic accountants to find the wire transfer. They must file before November 8th or lose their advantage completely. And 90 days is enough time for forensic accountants to find the wire transfer. They must file before November 8th or lose their window completely. The caller knows South Carolina conservatorship law better than most attorneys, knows the exact timing, the legal tripwires. You still haven't told me who you are, I say. Why would Dr. Greer's own brother betray him to a stranger unless the fraud runs deeper than just my family? Let's just say Dr. Greer and I share a last name, but nothing else, the voice says. I'm a forensic psychiatrist with the South Carolina Medical Board. I've been investigating my brother for 3 years. Every time I get close, he destroys evidence. Every time a victim tries to fight, he settles quietly with an NDA. But you're different, Mrs. Caldwell. How am I different? Because your husband spent 3 years building legal structures my brother can't penetrate. Because you have resources most of his victims don't. Because you have 42 days to document everything before he files. And because I'm going to help you destroy him. The line goes silent for 3 heartbeats. You have 42 days, Mrs. Caldwell. I suggest you use them wisely. Wait, what's your name? How do I contact you? But the line is already dead. The call lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. My phone chimes, file transfer notification, encrypted attachment, 47 seconds of video. I open the file with trembling fingers. The thumbnail image makes my breath catch. Dr. Bradford Greer's face, frozen mid-smile, sitting in what looks like his private office. Across the desk from him, partially visible, is Thane's shoulder and hand. The timestamp reads, September 22nd, 2023, 7:13 p.m. On the desk between them sits a briefcase, open, unmistakably full of cash-neat stacks of $100 bills, rubber-banded and organized. Someone recorded my son paying off a psychiatrist to have me declared incompetent. Someone documented the exact moment the conspiracy became a crime. And that someone, Dr. Bradford Greer's own brother, a forensic psychiatrist, with the medical board just handed me evidence that could destroy them both. The question is, what does he want in return? Wren doesn't knock. She bursts through my bedroom door at 7 in the morning with her phone extended like evidence at a crime scene. I'm still at my desk, the encrypted video from Victor Greer frozen on my laptop screen, trying to understand why Dr. Bradford Greer's own brother would hand me ammunition without naming his price. I haven't slept. My coffee has gone cold. Grandma. Wren's voice is urgent, breathless. I just recorded this 15 minutes ago. You have to hear it right now. She's still in pajamas, hair uncombed, backpack slung over one shoulder. Whatever she captured made her run straight here instead of finishing her morning routine. Recorded what? Mom, screaming at Dad. Wren closes the bedroom door and locks it. I was in the upstairs hallway getting my backpack. She was in the guest bedroom screaming so loud I thought you'd hear her down here. Who was she screaming at? Dad, on speakerphone. Wren sits on the edge of my bed, hands shaking slightly. And Grandma, you need to hear what she said about that safe. She presses play. The audio quality is crystal clear. Vivian wasn't trying to be quiet. My daughter-in-law's voice explodes from the phone speaker, shrill with rage. I don't care if the locksmith refused. Find another one. We have 5 weeks, Thane. 5 weeks before we lose our window. Thane's response is barely audible, mumbled and defensive. Dr. Greer says the evaluation needs to look natural. Natural. Vivian's scream makes me flinch even through the recording. Your mother is sitting on $11 million, and you're worried about natural... Wren pauses the playback. She's talking about the trust, the irrevocable one Mr. Pierce told you about. She doesn't know it's irrevocable, I say quietly. She thinks once they get guardianship, they can access it. Keep listening. Wren hits play again. Vivian continues, voice dripping with contempt. You hired 2 locksmiths, 2, and neither of them could crack a simple basement safe. What kind of incompetent... It's not a simple safe. Thane protests weakly. It's military grade. The second guy said it would take industrial equipment. Then get industrial equipment. Break through the wall. I don't care how you do it. My daughter-in-law just called $11 million. Her inheritance. Edmund's money. My money. Hers. There's more, Wren whispers. This is the part that made me run down here. The recording continues. Vivian's voice drops lower, colder, more calculated. Listen to me very carefully, Thane. My mother found a facility in Georgia. Long-term psychiatric commitment. Once she's inside, we have full access and she never comes out. Do you understand what I'm saying? The room goes silent except for the recording. Thane's response is so quiet I have to strain to hear, that seems extreme. Extreme. Vivian's laugh is harsh, bitter. Extreme is letting her waste my inheritance on maritime charities and board member favors. Extreme is watching her give away money that should be ours while we're drowning in debt. Vivian, please. No, you listen. Dr. Greer files the competency evaluation on November 7th. We have the emergency guardianship approved within 72 hours. Then she's transferred to Magnolia Hills in Augusta. My mother already has the intake coordinator bribed. Once she's committed long-term, the courts grant us full financial authority indefinitely. She disappears. We get everything. End of story. I feel my hands go numb. They don't want to control me. They want to erase me. Ren stops the playback. Her face is pale shocked. She's talking about locking you in a psychiatric hospital, permanently. Magnolia Hills. I say, my voice flat. Simone researched it. Probably found a facility with a history of flexible admission standards. Grandma, this isn't just about money anymore. This is... Ren's voice breaks. This is kidnapping. This is making you disappear. I take the phone from her hands. Is there more? 30 seconds, but it's bad. I hit play. Thane's voice finally finding some spine. What if she fights the evaluation? What if she lawyers up? Vivian's response is ice cold. Then I tell Dr. Greer you're backing out, and we both know what happens then, don't we? Your CFO starts looking at those offshore accounts your father never knew about. The ones in the Caymans, the ones with $400,000 that didn't come from your salary. So you'll do exactly what I say exactly when I say it, or I'll make sure Conrad finds every transfer you've been hiding for the past 3 years. Silence on the recording, then Thane barely audible. You're threatening me. I'm reminding you that we're in this together, and if you try to back out now, you go down first. The recording ends. I sit perfectly still processing. My son has been embezzling from Caldwell Maritime, $400,000 in offshore accounts. Conrad, our CFO, doesn't know, and Vivian is using that knowledge as leverage. Ren looks at me with Edmund's careful eyes and asks the question I've been avoiding. Grandma, what offshore accounts? What else has Dad been hiding? I don't answer immediately, because if Thane is embezzling from Caldwell Maritime and Vivian knows about it, I'm not just watching a conspiracy unfold. I'm watching my son commit multiple felonies to cover up crimes he's already committed. The guardianship fraud isn't the beginning. It's just the latest escalation. How long has this been going on? Ren whispers. I think about Edmund's envelope dated September 18th, 2001. 22 years of preparation. Irving's story about 17-year-old Thane stealing from the Marina cash box. A long time, I say. Longer than either of us knew. Ren uploads the audio file to the encrypted folder alongside Vivian's basement surveillance and Victor Greer's cash payment video. Evidence stacking up like ammunition. What do we do now? She asks. Now, I say, we find out exactly how much your father has stolen, and we document every dollar before they can hide it. The Kiowa Island Marina smells exactly the way it did when Edmund first brought me here 40 years ago. Salt and diesel and possibility. I drive alone 70 miles from Charleston following Irving's cryptic text, "Come today, bring nothing, tell no one." The offshore accounts Vivian threatened Thane with aren't just evidence of his crimes, they're the key to understanding how long this has been happening. Irving waits at the private dock, a weathered marine chest at his feet, the kind sailors use for documents they can't afford to lose. He looks older than he did 11 days ago, worn down by carrying Edmund's secrets. I've kept this in my office safe for 22 years, he says without preamble. Edmund brought it here in September 2001, added to it every few years, made me promise never to open it, never to move it, never to acknowledge its existence unless you came asking. He lifts the chest. It's heavy, substantial. We walk to his office, a small room above the marina shop with windows overlooking the dock where Edmund kept his sailboat. Before you open that, Irving says, pulling an envelope from his desk drawer, you need to see these. Property deeds. Official, notarized, filed with Charleston County. I scan the first page and my breath catches. Kiowa Island Beach House transferred into sole ownership, Harriet Caldwell. Date of transfer, March 15, 2015. Not joint ownership, not marital property. Mine alone. Edmund moved this property into your name exclusively in 2015, Irving says. Thane has no legal claim whatsoever. Neither does Vivian. Why 2015? What happened that year? Irving's expression is grim. That's when Edmund found the first offshore account. The chest will explain everything. He sets the marine chest on his desk and steps back, letting me approach alone. The lock is already open. Irving must have the key. Inside, 17 cassette tapes nestle in foam, padding each labeled in Edmund's precise handwriting. Dates spanning September 2001 to August 2023. The earliest is marked September 19, 2001. Subject first incident. Amount $3,400 from corporate petty cash. Beneath the tapes, physical ledgers with columns of numbers in Edmund's hand. Bank statements showing wire transfers, all bearing Thane's signature. Photographs of documents, some original, some clearly copies, showing forged approvals and falsified expense reports. 22 years of evidence meticulously preserved. He started recording the day after Thane turned 16. Irving says quietly. Said he needed documentation in case something happened to him. I pick up the first tape. The plastic case is yellowed with age. September 19, 2001. Subject first incident. Listen to tape 7, Irving says. That's the one he wanted you to hear first. My husband's voice from 8 years ago is telling me what I refused to see. While he was alive, our son is a thief. I find tape 7. March 2015. Irving produces an old cassette player, the kind we haven't needed in decades, but he's apparently kept for exactly this purpose. I press play. Edmund's voice fills the small office, younger than I remember, stronger, but unmistakably, him. March 15, 2015. Harriet, if you're listening to this, I'm gone, and Thane has done what I've been afraid he'd do since he was 16 years old. The words hit like a physical blow. I grip the edge of Irving's desk. Edmund continues his tone, clinical, detached, like he's narrating a business report. Today I discovered Thane created an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Account number 847-CC-29103. He routed $89,000 from Caldwell Maritime operating funds over 6 months using falsified consulting invoices. $89,000, 8 years ago, before the current conspiracy, before Dr. Greer, before everything. I confronted him this morning, Edmund's voice says. He looked me in the eye and lied. Blamed Conrad, our CFO. Said he was investigating suspicious transfers and was building evidence. He was convincing. If I hadn't already confirmed the signatures were his, I might have believed him. I hear Edmund take a breath on the tape. When he speaks again, his voice is heavy with resignation. I forgave him publicly, told him I believed him. But privately, I know the truth this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. So today, I transferred the Kiowa Island property into Harriet's sole ownership. Thane can never touch it. I'm also establishing the irrevocable trust structure with Beatrix Harlow, because I know now this won't stop. He'll take everything if I let him. How many times did Edmund look at Thane across the dinner table and see a stranger wearing our son's face? The tape continues. If Harriet is listening to this, it means I'm gone and Thane has made his move. Harriet, our son, is not who you think he is. He never was. I've documented 22 years of theft. It's all here, every incident, every dollar, every lie. Use it. Protect yourself. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you what I saw, but I couldn't make you carry this knowledge while I still breathed. I loved you too much to burden you with the truth about our son. The tape clicks off. I sit in silence, tears streaming down my face. Irving stands by the window, giving me space to grieve. There are 17 tapes, he says finally. Each one documents a theft. Each one is dated, detailed, backed up with physical evidence. Edmund built you an archive. I wipe my eyes and look at the remaining cassettes. Dates marching forward through time. 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2018, 2020, 2023. A 22-year pattern of theft, each incident carefully preserved. The last one, I say. When did Edmund record it? Irving picks up the final tape. The label makes my blood run cold. August 27, 2023. Subject, the final theft. Amount $127,000 corporate embezzlement discovered. Timeline Thane will need access to trust within 90 days to cover quarterly audit. Conclusion, he will use guardianship. Dr. Bradford Greer already contacted. August 27th, 3 weeks before Edmund died. He knew, I whisper. He knew the exact conspiracy. 3 weeks before he died, he knew everything. Yes, Irving says, and he still left you alone to fight it, because he also left you everything you'd need to win. When the forensic accountant calls at 8 in the morning, I already have Edmund's cassette tapes spread across my desk, 22 years of my son's crimes, waiting to meet their modern equivalent. I drove back from Kiowa Island yesterday with Irving's marine chest strapped into my passenger seat like precious cargo. Spent the night listening to Edmund's voice, document theft after theft, year after year, watching our son's criminal education progress from petty cash to offshore accounts. Now Felicity Wolf is about to tell me how that education culminated. Mrs. Caldwell. Felicity begins her voice carrying the clinical precision of someone who'd spent 30 years translating corporate lies into criminal evidence. I have Dalton Pierce on the line as well. We've completed the forensic analysis of Caldwell Maritime's financial records for the past 18 months. What did you find? I ask, though Edmund's final cassette already gave me the answer. Exactly $127,000 embezzled through 34 separate transactions. Felicity's tone is matter-of-fact professional. The amounts vary between $2,000 and $5,000 per transaction. That's strategically significant. Dalton speaks up from his end of the call. Amounts below $10,000 don't trigger automatic flags in most corporate accounting systems. Your son knows your internal controls intimately. Tidao, 34 transactions over 18 months. Felicity continues. That's an average of 1.9 thefts per month. This isn't desperation, Mrs. Caldwell. This is systematic income. I look at the cassette tapes on my desk. 2001. 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2018, 2020, 2023. Edmund's archive showing the same pattern repeating across decades. How long has he been doing this? I ask. In your professional opinion, Felicity doesn't hesitate. Based on the sophistication of the shell company architecture and his knowledge of your specific accounting blind spots, this pattern suggests years of practice. He knows exactly how to exploit your systems because he helped design some of them. That's what Edmund knew. That's why he started recording in 2001. Walk me through the money flow, Dalton says. 3-layer structure, Felicity replies. I hear papers rustling on her end. Thane created shell companies in Delaware Harbor Consulting, LLC, and Maritime Advisory Services, Inc. Both have his personal email as the registered agent contact, though the incorporation documents list fake addresses. From there, the money routes through a Cayman Islands holding company called Coastal Partners International before landing in his personal accounts. Each transaction disguised as, Dalton asks, consultant fees or vendor payments. He generated fake invoices, fake contracts, fake delivery confirmations. Felicity pauses. And he forged authorization signatures. My hands go cold. My signature. 17 times. Felicity confirms. Each one authorized payments to the fake consulting firms he controls. I'm sending you screen captures now. The forgeries are excellent. He's had practice. My phone chimes. I open the images. My signature rendered in what looks exactly like my handwriting, authorizing thousands of dollars in payments to companies that don't exist. 34 times my son typed my name on documents authorizing his own theft. 17 times he practiced my signature until it looked real enough to steal from me. That's 17 counts of corporate fraud, Dalton says grimly. Add the embezzlement, the wire fraud, the forgery. Harriet, your son, is looking at federal prison. If he can't replace that money before the quarterly audit, Felicity adds, the external auditors will flag it within hours. Deloitte doesn't miss patterns like this. The quarterly audit, I say. When is it scheduled? Felicity's pause tells me she's already connected these dots. November 15th, exactly 40 days from today. The room goes quiet except for my breathing. The audit notice went out to all executives on August 20th. Felicity continues. Standard 60-day advance notice. Your husband died September 18th. Your son met with Dr. Greer at the funeral. The guardianship papers are scheduled to file November 7th, 8 days before the audit. He needs your trust money to replace what he stole before November 15th. Dalton says, or the auditors expose him automatically. Edmund knew. My voice sounds distant, hollow. The cassette from August 27th, he knew Thane had 90 days. He predicted all of it. Edmund died knowing his son had 90 days to destroy us both. He died anyway. There's one more thing, Felicity says carefully. The audit schedule includes a 9 a.m. start time with external auditors reviewing all accounts. Your corporate calendar shows a board meeting at 2 p.m., the same day for the quarterly report presentation. Meaning, I ask? Meaning, if the auditors find the discrepancy at 9 in the morning, they're required to report it to the board before the afternoon meeting. Thane would be exposed in front of the entire board, including you, within hours of discovery. Dalton pulls up something on his computer. I hear keys clicking. November 15th, 9 a.m., external audit Deloitte and Touche. Same day, 2 p.m. board meeting, quarterly report. The timeline crystallizes into perfect, terrible clarity. Thane received the audit notice August 20th. 5 days later, Edmund discovered the embezzlement and recorded his final cassette. 3 weeks after that, Edmund died. 2 weeks after the funeral, I'm sitting here with evidence of 22 years of theft and 40 days until automatic exposure. He's racing against the audit, I say, not against me. The guardianship, the psychiatric evaluation, the Georgia facility, it's all about getting access to the trust before November 15th. Yes, Felicity confirms. If he doesn't have that $127,000 back in corporate accounts by 9 a.m. on November 15th, the auditors will flag it before the afternoon board meeting. His career ends. His freedom ends. Everything ends. Which means his entire conspiracy has exactly 40 days to succeed, Dalton says. Or we have 40 days to stop him, I correct. I look at Edmund's cassette tapes, at Felicity's forensic reports, at Wren's surveillance footage, and Victor Greer's bribery video, all organized in encrypted folders on my laptop. Edmund left me the evidence. Now I have to use it. I use the loading dock entrance at 6 in the morning when the only people at Caldwell Maritime are longshoremen who remember when I actually ran this company. 40 days until the audit. 40 days to stop Thane's conspiracy. But first, I need to understand exactly what Conrad knows and why Edmund trusted him with secrets he didn't trust me with. The headquarters smell like it always has diesel fuel, salt water, and industrial coffee from the break room. I climb the back stairs to the executive floor, avoiding the main entrance cameras Thane monitors. Conrad's office door is unlocked, waiting. He stands when I enter. Conrad Ashford, 54, the company's CFO for 16 years. Silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses. The careful posture of someone who's spent 3 decades making numbers tell the truth. He's been Edmund's secret weapon for the past 3 years, silently documenting our son's crimes with the patience of someone who understood that justice requires irrefutable evidence. Mrs. Caldwell. He locks the door behind me. Edmund said you'd come eventually. I expected it sooner. Edmund told you I'd come. He said when Thane made his move, you'd need allies who could prove what happened. Conrad gestures to his desk where an encrypted hard drive sits next to a thick folder. He came to me in 2020, said his son was stealing and asked if I'd document everything quietly. For 3 years, I've tracked every dollar Thane moved. The words hit like a revelation. You knew for 3 years and said nothing. Edmund made me promise to wait until after he died. He said you'd need irrefutable proof when Thane made his move. This is that proof. Conrad picks up the hard drive. 34 wire transfers with exact timestamps. IP addresses showing Thane initiated each from his corporate laptop. Side-by-side signature comparisons proving 17 forgeries. And the most damning evidence emails between Thane and his Cayman accounts using his personal Gmail address. He hands me the drive. It's heavier than it should be weighted with crimes. Why Gmail? I ask. Because he's careless. He never thought anyone was watching. Conrad opens his laptop and pulls up files. Every email time-stamped. Every transfer authorized from his office computer between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. when he thought he was alone. But our security system logs all building access and computer activity. I have 3 years of evidence showing exactly when he was here, which computer he used, which accounts he accessed. Edmund built an army I never knew existed. He recruited my own company's CFO to watch our son commit crimes for 3 years, waiting for this exact moment. Conrad pulls up a spreadsheet. Rows and rows of transactions, each highlighted in different colors. Red for wire transfers, yellow for forged authorizations, blue for shell company payments. Is this enough for federal prosecution? I ask. This is enough for 20 years in federal prison. Conrad's voice is clinical precise. Wire fraud, corporate embezzlement, forgery, money laundering, Thane committed every crime in the book. The U.S. Attorney's Office would consider this a gift. I stare at the screen. 3 years of my son destroying himself, pixel by pixel, transaction by transaction, while Edmund watched and documented and waited. There's something else, Conrad says, and his expression darkens. Something that happened this morning. My chest tightens. What? My assistant arrived early 5:30 a.m. She heard Thane in his office on speakerphone. He was talking to Dr. Greer. The room goes cold. She recorded it on her phone. Conrad continues. Dr. Greer confirmed the medical affidavit is signed notarized and dated October 9th, yesterday. The guardianship petition is ready to file. Dr. Greer signed my death warrant yesterday. I have less than 2 weeks. Edmund said 90 days. I say, my voice tight. From his death to the audit, it's only been 3 weeks. Thane's panicking. Vivian's pushing him. They know they're running out of time before the November audit. Conrad pulls up another file, the corporate calendar. He's not waiting for November. What do you mean? Conrad highlights a calendar entry, October 24th, 9 a.m., board meeting emergency session. Thane called this emergency meeting yesterday, 2 hours after Dr. Greer signed the affidavit. Conrad zooms in on the meeting notice. The agenda says, discussion of interim leadership due to family medical emergency. The implications crash over me like a wave. He's removing me from the board. He's planning to present Dr. Greer's medical affidavit claim you're mentally incompetent and request an emergency vote to grant him interim leadership authority. Conrad's voice is grim. Once he has that authority, he can access corporate accounts directly. He'll replace the $127,000 before the November audit, and no one will ever know it was gone. Except you. Except me, Conrad agrees. And except Edmund, who predicted exactly this scenario and spent 3 years making sure we'd have evidence to stop it. I look at the calendar. October 10th today. October 24th, 14 days away. Edmund gave me 40 days, I say. Thane is giving me 2 weeks. Conrad closes his laptop and faces me directly. What do you want to do? I think of Edmund's cassette tapes, Dalton Pierce's irrevocable trust structures, Felicity Wolf's forensic audit, Wren's surveillance footage, Victor Greer's bribery video, and now Conrad's 3-year archive of crimes. Edmund didn't leave me defenseless. He left me armed. I want to set a trap, I say. Edmund spent 22 years building the walls. Now I'm going to make sure Thane walks straight into them. Conrad's smile is sharp professional. Good, because I have a plan for that October 24th board meeting, and I think you're going to like it. The document Dalton slides across his conference table is 43 pages of legal architecture that will either save my life or become my son's prison sentence. 5 days since Conrad revealed Thane's accelerated timeline. 9 days until the October 24th board meeting. I've spent every waking hour preparing for this moment, finalizing the trap Edmund spent 2 decades building. Dalton sits across from me in his Columbia office, the morning sun casting long shadows across pages of conditional trust amendments. These aren't simple legal documents. They're weapons. Edmund designed this with 3 redundant triggers. Dalton says, tapping the first section, guardianship filing board removal attempt or unauthorized asset access. Any one of them trips the mechanism. I scan the language, dense, technical, precise, and the transfer happens automatically, within 90 seconds. Dalton pulls up his laptop and shows me the electronic filing system. The trust documents are pre-filed with the South Carolina Secretary of State. One electronic signature from me, triggered by any of those 3 actions, and the transfer executes before Thane can stop it. No court hearing, no waiting period, instantaneous. The elegance of it takes my breath away. Edmund anticipated every move. Walk me through what happens when it triggers I say. Dalton flips to page 12. The moment Thane files guardianship papers or the board votes to remove you or anyone attempts unauthorized access to your accounts, the system detects it. I receive automated notification. I click one button and everything transfers to the Kiowa Island Trust. Everything? Your Caldwell Maritime voting shares, the $11 million irrevocable trust, corporate signatory authority, property deeds. All of it moves into the Kiowa entity within 90 seconds. I remember Irving handing me the Kiowa property deeds, March 2015. 8 years of protection I never knew existed. Kiowa Island is already in your sole name. Dalton continues. The moment this triggers, your corporate shares and trust transfer there too. It becomes a fortress no court can penetrate. Even if a judge later grants guardianship over you personally, they can't reverse the transfer because the Kiowa entity is irrevocable and was established 8 years ago. It's grandfathered, protected, untouchable. What happens to Thane's corporate position? Dalton's smile is sharp. If you're no longer on the board because he successfully removes you, he no longer reports to any board member with actual authority. His VP title becomes meaningless. He can't access accounts, can't authorize transfers, can't touch anything. He'll have removed the only person whose position gave him corporate access. Edmund built this trap 8 years ago. He's been dead for less than a month, and he's still protecting me better than anyone alive. There's one more component. Dalton says, his expression turning serious. This one Edmund added just 6 months ago. He flips to page 37, Section 9, Evidence Disclosure Protocol. I read slowly, my pulse quickening with each sentence. Once the trigger activates, Dalton explains, the system doesn't just transfer your assets. It automatically forwards a complete evidence package to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division and the South Carolina Attorney General's office. Every cassette tape Edmund recorded, every wire transfer Conrad documented, Felicity's forensic audit, Wren's surveillance footage, Victor Greer's bribery video, everything. Automatic, preloaded, pre-addressed. The moment Thane springs the trap, federal prosecutors receive a gift-wrapped case against him. He won't just lose, he'll face immediate criminal investigation. My son thinks he's hunting me. He has no idea he's already standing in the snare. Dalton produces the final execution documents, cream-colored paper, watermarked official. 3 signature pages marked with yellow tabs. Sign here, here, and initial here, he says. Once you do, the trap is fully armed. I pick up the pen. It's heavier than I expected, gold-plated Edmund's name engraved on the barrel. Dalton must have saved it. And if Thane does nothing, I ask, if he somehow discovers this and backs away, then he walks free and you keep everything. But Edmund knew your son better than that. Dalton's voice is quiet, certain. He knew Thane wouldn't stop. Not with $127,000 of debt and a quarterly audit 9 days after that board meeting. Your son is trapped between his crimes and his desperation. He has to move forward. I press the pen to paper and sign my name. Once, twice, 3 times. Each signature feels like loading around into a chamber. Dalton signs as trustee. Then he presses a button on his desk intercom. "Send Margaret in, please." A notary enters Margaret Holloway, 62, who's worked in this building for 30 years and notarizes documents without asking questions. She watches me sign the final page, stamps it with her seal records the timestamp in her log. "All done," she says, and leaves as quietly as she arrived. Dalton scans the documents into his system. I watch the upload bar progress 50%, 75, 90 complete. The conditional amendments are now filed electronically with timestamp verification, he says. The trigger mechanism is live. The evidence package is loaded and ready. The transfer protocols are activated. He closes his laptop and looks at me with something close to admiration. "The trap is set, Harriet. Now we wait for them to bite." I slide the documents into my briefcase next to Edmund's cassette tapes and Wren's surveillance footage. Evidence of 22 years of theft. Proof of conspiracy. Weapons I never wanted to need. 9 days until the October 24th board meeting. 9 days until Thane walks into that conference room planning to remove me from power. 9 days until he discovers his father turned him into prey 22 years ago. The question isn't whether he'll spring the trap. Edmund knew he would. The trap was designed for exactly that certainty. The question is whether I'm ready to watch my own son destroy himself. My son walks into my living room at 10 in the morning without calling, first carrying a briefcase that looks exactly like the one his father used to carry, except Edmund never looked at me the way Thane is looking at me now. The trap is armed. 9 days became 6, and now Thane is here with documents that will spring it if I sign them or if I refuse. He doesn't knock. Vivian follows 3 steps behind, arms crossed, positioning herself by the window like she's blocking an escape route. I'm sitting in Edmund's reading chair with tea going cold on the side table, playing the grieving widow I'm supposed to be. "Mother." Thane sets the briefcase on my coffee table leather, worn exactly where Edmund's used to show wear. "We need to discuss some corporate matters." At 10 in the morning, I keep my voice soft, confused. "Without calling first. These are time-sensitive." He opens the briefcase and pulls out a document packet bound with blue backing. The cover page is marked in red stamp, "Urgent Execute" by October 19th, 2023. Tomorrow. He planned this days ago. What are these standard corporate documents? Thane sits across from me, spreading papers across the coffee table. "The board needs your signature to clarify authority during the transition period." I lean forward slowly like an old woman whose joints hurt. Transition period. "Your father only died a month ago. What transition?" Vivian speaks from the window, her voice sharp. "The company needs clear leadership, Harriet. This protects everyone, including you." I pick up the first document. The letterhead says Caldwell Maritime, but the language is pure legal warfare. I read carefully, moving my lips slightly like I'm struggling to understand. "These are standard restructuring agreements," Thane says. "Every company goes through this when leadership changes. This page says I'm transferring all voting shares to you immediately." I look up at him, letting my hand tremble genuinely, because I'm reading my own planned erasure. Why would I do that? It's temporary, just until the board finalizes the succession plan. And this one, I flip pages. Asset management authorization. What does that mean? Thane's jaw tightens, barely perceptible. It means I can manage corporate accounts while we transition leadership. It's standard. I'm watching my son try to steal my life while pretending he's protecting me, and I have to act grateful for his concern. The living room door opens quietly. Wren enters with fresh tea, 17 years old, moving like a ghost phone, hidden in her cardigan pocket. I see the lens pointed at the coffee table, recording everything. "Thank you, sweetheart," I say. Wren sets the tea tray down and retreats to the doorway. Doesn't leave, just stands there, silent witness. I pick up the third document. Medical power of attorney. I'm not sick, Thane. It's precautionary. His voice is gentle, practiced. If anything happens to you, someone needs authority to make medical decisions. I can make my own decisions. Of course you can. Thane pulls a pen from his jacket, gold-plated, expensive. But these documents protect you if circumstances change. They give me legal authority to act in your best interests. I read the medical power of attorney clause carefully. It grants Thane authority to commit me to long-term psychiatric care, override my medical decisions, and authorize medications without my consent. Complete erasure disguised as corporate governance. I set the pen down without signing. I need my own attorney to review these before I sign anything this significant. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Thane stands abruptly, the professional mask cracking. "Mother, you're not thinking clearly." I'm thinking perfectly clearly, which is why I want legal counsel before signing away my life's work. Vivian steps away from the window, moving closer. "Everyone can see you're struggling, Harriet. The staff notices. The board notices. Even Wren." She glances at my granddaughter, sees it. "Sees what?" I ask, voice steady. Thane leans forward using words I recognize from somewhere else. Declining cognitive function. Memory lapses, inability to make sound decisions. These are medical facts. Mother, not judgments. He practiced these words. Dr. Greer taught him exactly what to say. "My mind is perfectly clear," I say, "which is why I'm not signing anything today." "You don't have that luxury." Thane's voice rises, control slipping. "The board meeting is Wednesday, 6 days. They're going to address your situation with or without your cooperation. My situation, your declining mental state." He says it clinically, like a diagnosis. Dr. Greer has documented everything. The board will vote on interim leadership based on medical evidence. You can make this easy by signing these documents today, or you can force us to do this the hard way. Wren's hand tightens around her phone, still recording. "What's the hard way?" I ask. Thane collects the unsigned documents, sliding them back into his briefcase. When he looks at me again, his eyes are Edmund's eyes, but cold, calculating nothing of his father's warmth. "You don't have a choice anymore, Mother. Your mind is going. Everyone will see that on Wednesday. Sign these today and maintain some dignity, or force us to do this the hard way, and I promise you the hard way ends with you in a facility in Georgia, wondering why your own family had to save you from yourself." He stands, leaves the document packet on my coffee table like evidence of my incompetence. Vivian follows him to the door, then pauses, turns back. 6 days, Harriet," she whispers. "You have 6 days to come to your senses." They leave. The front door closes. The house settles into silence. Wren stops recording and comes to sit beside me. Her hands are shaking. "Did you get everything?" I ask. "Every word." She plays back the audio. Thane's voice crystal clear. "The hard way ends with you in a facility in Georgia." I pick up my phone and text Dalton Pierce. "They just threatened psychiatric commitment. 6 days until board meeting. Need to meet tomorrow." His reply comes instantly. "The trap is ready. Let them walk into it." I look at the unsigned documents on my coffee table. Proof of attempted fraud. Evidence of conspiracy. Weapons they handed me themselves. The trap is armed, and they're walking straight toward it. 6 days. The encrypted file arrives at 7 in the morning with a subject line that makes my blood run cold. "Your son paid my brother $50,000 in cash yesterday. Here's the proof. 6 days after Thane threatened me in my living room. 1 day after the emergency board meeting that never happened. I sit in my study with coffee going cold and open the attachment Victor Greer sent. The video player loads. Timestamp October 25th, 2023, 6:47 p.m. Location stamp Dr. Bradford Greer's private office, Columbia Medical Center. Camera angle from bookshelf, hidden professional surveillance quality. The office door opens. Thane enters carrying the same leather briefcase he brought to my house. After clinic hours, the building looks empty dark except for this one office. Dr. Greer stands to greet him, closing the door. No handshake, just business. My phone chimes. Text from Victor Greer. "Conrad canceled October 24th board meeting yesterday morning. Claimed procedural violations in the meeting notice. Bought you time. Watch the video. This is what they did next." I press play. "October 24th didn't work out the way we planned," Thane says, setting the briefcase on Dr. Greer's desk. "We're moving to Plan B." I heard the board meeting was canceled. Dr. Greer's voice is clinical detached. Procedural issues. My mother's CFO is more loyal than I expected. Thane's jaw tightens visible even on the grainy footage, but November 15th changes everything. November 15th, the quarterly audit date, the deadline Edmund predicted 3 months before he died. Thane opens the briefcase. Stacks of $100 bills, bank bundled, fill the interior. He pulls them out one by one and arranges them on the desk. Dr. Greer watches with the patience of someone who's done this before, pulling latex gloves from his desk drawer before touching the money. I'm watching my son count out $50,000 in cash to buy a doctor's signature on my death sentence. Dr. Greer counts methodically, 50 bundles of $1,000 each. When he's satisfied, he slides the money into his desk drawer and pulls out a folder. $50,000 as agreed, he says. The assessment is complete, signed, and notarized as of this morning. Thane opens the folder. Even on camera, I can see my name on the clinical forms. Psychiatric evaluation. Diagnosis field checked advanced dementia with severe decision-making impairment. And you're certain it will hold up in court? Thane asks. Dr. Greer's smile is professional practiced. I've done this before. The diagnosis is medically sound on paper. No judge will question a board-certified psychiatrist with 30 years' experience. The symptoms I've documented are consistent with progressive cognitive decline. She'll fail every competency assessment I design. Even though you've never actually examined her, I examined her at your father's funeral, observed her behavior, documented her confusion and emotional instability. Dr. Greer pulls out another form. This is my clinical observation report from September 18th. Everything I need to establish a pattern. Thane studies the documents. What if she brings her own psychiatric expert? By the time she does, she'll already be under court-ordered evaluation, in a facility I recommend, with staff I've worked with before. Dr. Greer leans back in his chair. The system is designed to protect vulnerable adults, Thane. Once I declare her a danger to herself, the court has no choice but to order immediate protective custody. They're not just planning to steal from me. They're planning to make me disappear. Dr. Greer pulls out a large envelope, legal-size, cream-colored official. He slides the clinical assessment inside and seals it with red wax. Then he writes on the front in black marker, confidential medical evaluation. Below that file date, November 15th, 2023. November 15th. He chose the same day Edmund predicted. Even now, my dead husband knew my son better than I did. Walk me through the timeline again, Thane says. Dr. Greer pulls out a calendar. November 15th, morning Deloitte auditors arrive at Caldwell Maritime at 9 a.m. They'll flag the embezzlement discrepancies by noon, which triggers the emergency board session. Thane continues. At 2 p.m., you present my medical evaluation as evidence your mother is mentally unfit to address the financial irregularities. The board votes to remove her from all positions citing medical emergency. And then Dr. Greer taps the sealed envelope. Then you file this at Charleston County Courthouse at 5 p.m. sharp. Emergency guardianship petition with psychiatric evidence. The judge will order immediate 72-hour evaluation. And if she contests it, Dr. Greer's expression is cold certain. She won't have time. By the time any attorney files an objection, she'll already be in psychiatric custody for the mandatory evaluation. And once she's inside that facility, Thane, he slides the envelope across the desk. She never comes back out. Thane takes the envelope, holds it like it's a weapon. November 15th, he says. Morning audit, afternoon board vote, evening filing. 3 moves, 1 day. Coordinated perfectly. Dr. Greer stands pulling off the latex gloves. Your mother won't know what hit her. By nightfall, you'll have full legal control of her assets, her company, and her medical care. Everything she built becomes yours. The video ends. Screen goes black. I sit in my study, holding the USB drive that contains my son committing multiple federal felonies on camera. Conspiracy, fraud, attempted institutionalization of a competent adult, every word captured in perfect clarity. Victor Greer just gave me everything I need to destroy both his brother and mine. 20 days until November 15th. 20 days until my son tries to erase me. 20 days to decide if I can actually do this, if I can use this evidence to send my own son to federal prison. I pick up my phone and call Dalton Pierce. "Did you watch it?" he asks. "Every second." Then you know what we're dealing with. This isn't just guardianship fraud anymore. This is conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. This is a RICO case waiting to happen. I close my eyes. "He's my son. He's a criminal," Dalton says quietly. "And Edmund gave you the tools to stop him. The question is whether you're ready to use them." 20 days. Edmund's trap is armed. The evidence is overwhelming, and I have to decide if I can watch my son destroy himself or if destroying him destroys me too. The motion sensor wakes me at 2 in the morning, not with sound, but with the blue glow of my monitor screen, illuminating my bedroom like a crime scene under black light. 20 days since Dr. Greer's video. 20 days of waiting, watching, gathering evidence. Now the evidence is gathering itself. I reach for my nightstand and pull the monitor closer. 3 camera feeds show the basement in perfect night vision green. Center screen movement at the top of the stairs. Vivienne. She wears black jeans, black turtleneck latex gloves, carries a crowbar in one hand and what looks like locksmith tools in the other. She descends slowly, checking her phone every few seconds, its screen casting her face in harsh white light. I grab my own phone and start recording the monitor. Evidence of evidence. Vivienne reaches the wine cellar and moves straight to the hidden panel. She knows exactly where the safe is. No searching, no hesitation. Someone told her. Thane, probably. Or Simone. She pulls out her phone and speaks to herself, voice low but audible on my audio feed. "Edmund had to keep records," she whispers. "Thane said his father documented everything." She knows. Somehow she knows Edmund kept evidence. Vivienne wedges the crowbar into the safe door seam and pulls with her full body weight. Metal groans, high-pitched, resistant. The safe doesn't yield. Edmund built this fortress to withstand exactly this attack. She adjusts her grip and tries again, leveraging against the brick wall. The crowbar slips, scraping against steel with a sound like nails on slate. She curses under her breath. "If Harriet finds what's in this safe before we file, we lose everything," she says to her phone like she's recording a voice memo. "Before November 15th. Has to be before November 15th. They're not trying to steal from the safe. They're trying to destroy what's inside it. I'm watching my daughter-in-law commit felony burglary in my basement, and I feel nothing but cold professional satisfaction. Vivienne switches tactics. She raises the crowbar above her head and brings it down hard against the safe's dial mechanism. The impact echoes through the basement. She strikes again, again. The dial cracks, but holds. She's sobbing now, makeup streaking down her face in dark rivulets. Designer clothes torn at the shoulder where she braced against the brick. 23 minutes of escalating violence captured in perfect HD from 3 camera angles. "Simone said this would work," she cries, voice breaking. "She said we'd have time. We don't have time." She attacks the hinges next, hammering with desperate fury. Each strike sends sparks, flying metal on metal, violence meeting engineering. But Edmund's safe was built for this. Reinforced steel, military-grade locking mechanism, tamper-resistant everything. Vivienne collapses against the wine rack, breathing hard, crowbar dangling from one hand. She checks her phone again. 2:33 a.m. She's been down here for 30 minutes. She raises the crowbar one more time and brings it down with everything she has left. The strike lands at a specific point where the door frame meets the safe body, and something inside the safe clicks. Not loud, not mechanical, electronic, digital. My monitor screen flashes. Alert system engaged. Unauthorized access attempt detected. Filing evidence with Travers and Associates, LLP and SC court system. Timestamp 02/34/17. Edmund turned a safe into a weapon, and Vivienne just pulled the trigger on herself. On screen, Vivienne freezes. Her head snaps up, eyes wide, staring at the safe, like it just spoke to her. "Did something click?" she whispers. "Did I trigger something?" She presses her ear against the safe, listening, waiting. My phone buzzes with an incoming notification. Email from Beatrix's automated system. "Burglary evidence received." Attached high-definition video files, audio recordings. Timestamp verification, 3 angles of Vivian A's entire attack sequence. Filed with Charleston County Court Systems. Permanent public record created. Edmund built a safe that defends itself. Vivienne backs away from the safe, slowly crowbar, clattering to the floor. She looks around the basement like she's searching for cameras, finally understanding she's been watched, recorded, caught. She runs, up the stairs, through the house, out the back door. I watch her car's headlights sweep across my driveway at 2:41 a.m. My phone buzzes again. Text from Beatrix received, automated filing, 2:34 a.m. Attempted burglary, destruction of evidence, multiple felonies captured on your surveillance. This is prosecutable. Do you want me to file charges now or wait until November 15th? I sit in my bedroom surrounded by monitors showing an empty basement, a damaged safe that held firm and surveillance footage of my daughter-in-law committing crimes she doesn't yet know have been permanently documented. I text back, wait for November 15th. Let them think they still have time. Beatrix replies immediately. Understood. But the evidence is already filed with the court. Even if they somehow discover it, they can't erase it. Edmund made sure of that. Of course he did. My husband spent 22 years building a trap that sprung itself. The safe doesn't just protect what's inside, it prosecutes anyone who tries to break it. I download the surveillance footage to the encrypted drive alongside everything else. Thane paying Dr. Greer $50,000. Edmund's cassette tapes documenting 22 years of theft. Felicity's forensic audit. Conrad's wire transfer evidence. Wren's audio recordings. And now Vivian burglarizing my home, attempting to destroy evidence caught in perfect HD from 3 angles with court-certified timestamps. 13 days until November 15th. 13 days until I walk into that boardroom with video of my son bribing a psychiatrist, my daughter-in-law burglarizing my home, and 22 years of my husband's evidence proving my family has been destroying me for decades. The trap isn't set anymore. It's already sprung. They just don't know they're caught yet. I pour myself water from the nightstand carafe. My hands are steady. My breathing is calm. I feel the way Edmund must have felt, recording those cassette tapes, the cold clarity of someone who knows exactly what's coming and is prepared for every contingency. My phone chimes one more time. Text from Wren Grandma. Are you watching the cameras Mom just left in her car at 2:41 a.m., looking terrified? What happened? I reply. Your mother tried to break into the basement safe. She failed. Edmund made sure she would. Wren, did we get it on video? Me every second. Sleep well, sweetheart. 13 more days. 13 days until they realize the fortress they've been attacking already fell on top of them. The final encrypted file from Victor Greer arrives 6 days before November 15th, with a subject line that reads like a prosecutor's opening statement. My brother on camera admitting he falsifies diagnoses for money. Thane's name included. This ends him. 13 days since Vivian triggered Edmund's safe. 6 days until everything converges. I open the email in my study, coffee steaming beside Edmund's cassette tapes and the growing archive of evidence that will destroy my family. Dalton's message is clinical precise. This video is from September 29, 2023. Your husband died September 18th, 11 days later. My brother was already planning your psychiatric commitment while Edmund was alive. The recording is admissible in court. I'm a licensed medical ethics investigator. I've been building this case against Bradford for 3 years. Your family gave me everything I needed. September 29th. Edmund had been dead for 11 days, and Dr. Bradford Greer was already discussing how to institutionalize me with another corrupt colleague speaking freely in his home office, thinking he was safe. He was building my cage before Edmund was even cold. I download the video file encrypted, time-stamped, professionally captured. Victor Greer spent 3 years installing surveillance in his own brother's home, documenting crimes, waiting for the perfect case to bring him down. My family handed it to him. My study door opens. Wren enters with her laptop and portable audio equipment, 17 years old, moving with the methodical precision Edmund taught her. She's been helping me prepare evidence for weeks now, learning to fight the way her grandfather fought quietly, thoroughly, with documentation that can't be challenged. "Is this the last piece?" she asks, setting up her equipment on my desk. "This is the confession that ends it," I say. Dr. Greer on camera admitting he falsifies psychiatric evaluations for cash. Ren plugs in her audio interface and opens forensic software I've never seen before. The audio quality, Dalton says it's clear. Hidden camera in Bradford's home office. Then I can isolate every word timestamp, every admission, create a court-ready transcript. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, setting up filters and enhancement tools. This will play perfectly in court. I watch my granddaughter work Edmund's careful eyes, Edmund's patient hands, Edmund's strategic mind. The next generation protecting the family he tried to save. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," I say. "He taught you how to fight without them knowing you're fighting." Ren looks up at me, and for a moment I see not just Edmund, but myself, the woman I was before I understood what my family had become. "Grandma, are you ready to watch this? Once you see it, there's no going back." My granddaughter is 17 years old, and she's teaching me how to destroy her father with forensic audio analysis. "Play it," I say. Ren loads the video file. The player opens. Timestamp September 29th, 2023, 8:47 p.m. Location stamp Bradford Greer's home office, Columbia. Hidden camera angle from bookshelf, the same setup Dalton used for the cash payment video. The screen shows Dr. Greer at his home desk on a video call with someone whose face is pixelated for privacy. Another co-conspirator Dalton is protecting for now. Bradford looks relaxed wine glass beside his laptop, speaking freely in what he thought was privacy. Before I show you what Dr. Greer said on that recording comment, A, if you think Thane knew this was illegal from the start, or B, if you think he was manipulated into it, and add one reason why. Quick note, the next part includes some adapted details for storytelling impact. Ren presses play. Dr. Greer's voice fills my study casual and confident. The Caldwell woman. $50,000 for the diagnosis, another $25,000 if they want permanent Georgian facility placement. Thane's desperate the audits in November, and he needs access to her trust before the board discovers what he's been stealing. The pixelated colleague responds audio muffled but audible, something about risk about board-certified psychiatrists getting caught. Dr. Greer laughs. "I've done this 6 times this year. Wealthy families, elderly parents, always the same story. They want control. I provide medical justification. Sign the papers, wire the money, problem solved. No one questions a 30-year psychiatrist's clinical judgment." Ren's software captures every word timestamps, flashing, creating a transcript in real time. The diagnosis doesn't need to be accurate. Dr. Greer continues. It just needs to be convincing enough for a judge to order emergency evaluation. Once they're in psychiatric custody for the mandatory 72 hours, the family has time to file permanent guardianship. Most patients never make it back out. 6 other families, 6 other mothers and fathers institutionalized by the doctor my son paid. I'm not just watching my own destruction being planned, I'm watching a pattern criminal discuss his business model. Thane Caldwell is particularly motivated, Dr. Greer says to his colleague. Wire fraud charges if that audit catches him. He'll pay whatever I ask. Already sent a $50,000 deposit last week. Last week from September 29th. That would be September 22nd, 4 days after Edmund's funeral. 4 days after Thane met with Dr. Greer in the parking lot while my husband's body was barely cold. The video shows Dr. Greer pulling out a folder. I've already prepared her incompetency assessment. Advanced dementia, severe decision-making impairment danger to herself and others. The template works every time. Ren stops the playback. Her face is pale hands shaking slightly on the keyboard. He's not just destroying you. This is what he does. This is his business. Save that file. I say, my voice steady. Court-ready format, timestamp transcript, everything. Ren works for another 10 minutes, enhancing audio isolating voices, creating documentation that will hold up under legal scrutiny. When she's finished, she saves the file. dr_Greer_confession_September_29_court_ready.mp4. 7 days until November 15th. 7 days until I walk into that boardroom with Edmund's 22-year archive, Felicity's forensic audit, Conrad's wire transfer evidence surveillance footage of Vivienne's burglary, Dalton's bribery video, and now this, a psychiatrist confessing to serial fraud with my son's name attached. The trap Edmund built 22 years ago is about to close, and everyone who tried to erase me is standing inside it. My phone chimes. Text from Dalton Pierce confirmed. November 15th, 9 a.m. audit, 2 p.m. board meeting. All evidence filed and ready. The moment Thane makes any move against you, the conditional trust triggers automatically. Are you ready? I look at my desk covered in evidence. 22 years of my husband's documentation, weeks of my own surveillance and investigation, my granddaughter's technical expertise, my son's crimes captured in perfect clarity. I text back, I'm ready, let them come. My son drops the psychiatric evaluation on the boardroom table at exactly 2 o'clock, the sound echoing through a room that's been waiting 22 years for this moment. 7 days became 0. The trap is sprung, and Thane walks into this boardroom thinking he's about to remove his incompetent mother from power. He stands at the head of the conference table in Edmund's chair. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone. Dr. Bradford Greer sits beside him, professional and confident. Vivienne and Simone position themselves behind Thane like generals supporting their commander. The morning's audit report from Deloitte and Touche sits in a sealed folder at the center of the table, unopened. Thane thinks he's preempted its findings by removing me first. 5 board members watch from their seats. Conrad sits to my right, face carefully neutral. Beatrix Harlow sits across from me, hands folded on the table waiting. And in the back of the room, 2 men in business suits, the external auditors from Deloitte, having completed their morning review. Thank you all for attending on short notice. Thane begins his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone who's rehearsed this moment. I've called this emergency session to address a matter that affects the future of Caldwell Maritime and the safety of my mother. He picks up the psychiatric evaluation and holds it like evidence at trial. Dr. Greer's clinical assessment conducted over 3 months confirms what we've all observed. My mother is no longer capable of managing corporate responsibilities. Dr. Greer stands playing his role perfectly. The diagnosis is unambiguous advanced dementia with severe impairment. I recommend immediate transfer of authority and psychiatric evaluation for Mrs. Caldwell's own protection. Vivienne leans forward, adding her voice. We've all noticed the changes, the confusion, the memory lapses. This isn't about control. It's about protecting Harriet from herself. Thane sets the evaluation on the table. For the protection of this company and my mother's own well-being, I'm calling for an immediate vote to remove her from the board and transfer all executive authority to interim management. The auditors in the back exchange glances. They've already seen this morning's numbers. They know what Thane is trying to prevent. I stand slowly, not with widow's fragility, not with the trembling uncertainty I've performed for 6 weeks. I stand with the posture of someone who ran corporate operations for 30 years, who built systems. Thane is still trying to understand, who has been waiting for this exact moment since the day Edmund died. Before we vote on anything, I say, my voice clear and commanding, I'd like the board to see what my late husband left for this exact moment. Thane's confidence falters, just for a second. Mother, you're not well. Please sit down and let Dr. Greer. My mind is perfectly clear, Thane. I produce a remote control from my jacket pocket and aim it at the boardroom projector. Clear enough to watch you commit multiple felonies for the past 18 months. Clear enough to document every single one. Would you like the board to see the son who thought he was removing his incompetent mother is watching 22 years of his father's love manifest as justice? Conrad stands and locks the boardroom doors. The sound of the deadbolt engaging makes Vivienne jump. Beatrix Harlow pulls sealed evidence packets from her briefcase and distributes one to each board member. What is this? Simone demands. You can't lock us in here. This is a board meeting, I say calmly. And you're about to witness 22 years of evidence that will explain why my husband spent 2 decades building legal structures none of you knew existed. I press play. The projector screen divides into 4 panels. Top left, night vision footage of Vivian in my basement crowbar raised attacking Edmund's safe. Top right, Thane in Dr. Greer's office counting out $50,000 in cash. Bottom left, Dr. Greer on video call discussing how he falsifies psychiatric evaluations for money. Bottom right, wire transfer logs showing $127,000 embezzled from corporate accounts. Audio plays clearly through the boardroom speakers. Vivian's voice. If Harriet finds what's in this safe before we file, we lose everything. Thane's voice. $50,000 as agreed. Dr. Greer's voice. I've done this 6 times this year. Board members lean forward staring at the screen. One of them, Michael Bennett, who's been on this board for 20 years, covers his mouth with his hand. Is this surveillance footage from your home, Harriet? He asks. 22 years of evidence, I say. My husband predicted this exact conspiracy before my son turned 17. Everything you're watching has been verified by forensic accountants, authenticated by attorneys, and filed with federal authorities. The screen shifts. Edmund's face appears younger alive, speaking directly to camera from a cassette recording. If my son is watching this, Edmund's voice fills the boardroom. It means he chose theft over family. I documented 22 years of crimes. Harriet has everything she needs to stop him. Everything that happens next, he brought upon himself. Thane's face has drained of all color. He grips the edge of the table, knuckles white. You can't, this isn't, he starts, but his voice fails. This isn't legal. I finish for him. Every piece of evidence you're watching was obtained legally, time-stamped professionally, and filed with appropriate authorities. The FBI has been watching this presentation in real time. Edmund didn't leave me money. He left me a weapon, and I just pulled the trigger. Beatrix stands and addresses the board formally. The evidence packets before you contain forensic audit reports, wire transfer documentation, and criminal complaints filed this morning with federal prosecutors. Mr. Thane Caldwell has embezzled $127,000 from corporate accounts. Dr. Bradford Greer accepted $50,000 to fabricate psychiatric evaluations. Both committed conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and multiple federal crimes. Dr. Greer tries to stand. Conrad moves to block him, hand on his shoulder, pressing him back down into his chair. The projector screen freezes on Edmund's face from that cassette recording, September 18, 2001, the day after Thane's 16th birthday. Edmund's voice continues. Thane, if you're in that boardroom right now, know that I saw you. I always saw you. And I made sure your mother would have everything she needed when you finally made your move. The boardroom door opens. 2 federal agents and FBI windbreakers enter, badges raised, moving with the calm authority of people who've done this 1,000 times. The Deloitte auditors stand stepping aside to give them room. Dr. Greer stands slowly, hands already moving toward his pockets. I want my lawyer, he says. Simone grabs Vivian's arm, pulling her daughter close, whispering something urgent. And Thane, my son, looks at me across the boardroom table with the slow, terrible realization that his father saw him more clearly dead than I ever did alive. I walk to the wall safe my husband installed 22 years ago, press my thumb to the biometric reader, and hear the lock disengage with a sound like a promise kept. The FBI agents have secured the boardroom exits. Dr. Greer sits with his hands visible on the table as instructed. Thane stands frozen where Edmund's recording left him, staring at the projector screen that just played 22 years of his father's voice explaining how he saw through his son's character before Thane was old enough to vote. The wall safe is hidden behind a portrait of Edmund's first ship, the vessel he bought in 1981, that started everything. I swing the painting aside and reach into the safe, pulling out a sealed aluminum case that's been waiting in this boardroom since September 18, 2001. Inside, a digital recording device and a notarized document with 3 law firm seals. I place the device on the boardroom table. The metal case catches the overhead light reflecting across board members' stunned faces. "Mother, what is that?" Thane's voice is barely audible. "Your father's last words to this company, to this family, to you." I press play. Edmund's voice fills the boardroom, again younger this time, stronger, the voice I remember from 22 years ago when he was 61 and already planning for this exact moment. This recording is dated September 18th, 2001. If you're hearing this, then someone I raised has done the unthinkable. I pray it's not our son, but if it is... Edmund pauses and I hear him take a breath that carries 22 years of sadness across time. "Thane, I saw you. I always saw you, and I made sure you would face consequences I couldn't deliver while alive." The boardroom is absolutely silent. Even the FBI agents have stopped moving, listening to a dead man deliver judgment from beyond the grave. "I've established an irrevocable disinheritance clause," Edmund continues. "Any child of mine who attempts to declare me or Harriet mentally incompetent automatically forfeits their entire inheritance. The provision is filed with 3 separate law firms, Reynolds and Associates in Charleston Morrison Legal Group in Columbia and Caldwell Estate Services in Atlanta. All 3 receive sealed instructions, dated today, September 18th, 2001. The trigger is automatic. The forfeiture is immediate. There is no appeal, no reversal, no second chance. I look at my son's face as his father's voice washes over him, and I see the boy who used to climb into Edmund's lap to hear shipping stories. That boy is gone. Perhaps he was never really there. Perhaps Edmund knew that 22 years ago, too. Thane's face has drained of all color. He grips the edge of the table so hard his knuckles are white. Edmund's voice continues with devastating precision. "The inheritance includes the trust established in your name, any shares of Caldwell Maritime designated for transfer upon my death, and all property holdings intended for familial succession. If you're hearing this recording, Thane, it means you've already lost everything. Not because I took it from you, but because you forfeited it the moment you filed papers to declare your mother incompetent." Simone covers her mouth with both hands. Vivienne stares at the floor, shoulders shaking. He leaves this room with nothing, Edmund says, and the finality in his voice makes it sound like a judge pronouncing sentence. "Everything I built, everything I protected goes to Harriet exclusively. The lawyers know, the banks know, it's already done." The recording ends. Silence settles over the boardroom like ash. Miles Ashford stands and moves to the projector controls. "If I may, Mrs. Caldwell," I nod. Miles projects new images onto the ScreenWire transfer records, each one time-stamped and certified. $473,000 routed through 6 shell companies from Caldwell Maritime accounts to Thane Caldwell's personal holdings over the past 4 years. These transfers coincide with board meeting dates. Every vote your son influenced Mrs. Caldwell was purchased with your company's money. Felicity Wolf stands next, professional and precise. "My forensic audit covers 48 months of systematic embezzlement. The pattern is clear, documented, and irrefutable. The audit trail is complete. Federal prosecutors received these findings this morning, along with supporting documentation from 3 independent accounting firms." Thane finally finds his voice. "This is you can't prove." "We can prove all of it," Felicity says calmly. "Your digital signatures, your IP addresses, your personal email communications with the shell companies. You were thorough in stealing Mr. Caldwell, but you weren't careful." Conrad Ashford sits silent in his chair watching. His complicity is documented too: the canceled board meeting, the delayed reporting, the procedural manipulations that bought Thane time. But Conrad was working under Edmund's instructions, documenting everything while appearing to help Thane. Another layer of the trap. Every piece of evidence I've gathered, Felicity's audit, Wren's recordings, Victor Greer's video, Conrad's wire transfers, Vivienne's burglary footage, was never about building a case. The case was already built. I was just assembling proof of something Edmund prepared for decades ago. He didn't leave me defenseless. He left me invincible. One of the FBI agents, Agent Sarah Morrison, 42, who's been standing quietly by the door, finally speaks. "Mr. Caldwell, I need you to remain seated." Miles Ashford hands her a USB drive. Evidence file November 15, 2023-001. He says, complete documentation. Federal prosecutors have copies. Agent Morrison takes the drive and nods to her partner, who produces handcuffs from his belt. Thane's hands are shaking. His breathing is rapid, shallow. Mother, please. This wasn't... But Edmund's voice still echoes in my head. If you're hearing this, it means you've already lost everything. Simone is crying now, makeup streaming down her face. Vivienne has her arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I've ever seen her. And I realize with perfect terrible clarity that everything Edmund warned me about in those final hospital days was not paranoia, it was prophecy. He knew his son would do exactly this. He knew I would need exactly this protection. He built a fortress around me that took 22 years to complete and activated in the time it took Thane to sign his name on fraudulent documents. Agent Morrison's partner moves toward Thane. Stand up slowly, please. Thane tries to stand. His legs buckle. He catches himself on the edge of the table, breathing hard, and I do not move to catch him. The agent reaches for the handcuffs, and I watch my son, the boy I raised, the man who tried to erase me, face the consequences Edmund spent 2 decades engineering. The handcuffs close around Dr. Greer's wrists with a sound like a door slamming shut on 22 years of deceit. Agent Sarah Morrison reads him his rights in a voice that's done this 1,000 times. Dr. Bradford Greer, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit guardianship, fraud, falsification of medical records, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent. I want my lawyer, Dr. Greer says immediately. His professional calm has evaporated, replaced by the hollow-eyed panic of someone who just watched their entire career collapse in 15 minutes. You'll have access to counsel after booking. Morrison says, guiding him toward the door where 2 more agents wait. Thane watches in horror, still gripping the edge of the boardroom table. This can't be happening, he whispers. But it is happening. It's been happening for 22 years. He just didn't know it. Agent Morrison's partner approaches Conrad Ashford, who sits perfectly still in his chair. Mr. Ashford, you're not under arrest at this time. However, you're under investigation for wire fraud and conspiracy. Don't leave Charleston. A federal prosecutor will contact you within 48 hours. Conrad nods once, face unreadable. He knew this was coming. Edmund warned him years ago that documenting Thane's crimes would eventually mean documenting his own participation, even if that participation was surveillance disguised as complicity. The boardroom door opens again. Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Reston enters with a leather briefcase and the cold efficiency of someone who has prosecuted white-collar conspiracies for 2 decades. 52 years old, silver hair pulled back severely. She moves like a general surveying conquered territory. Mrs. Caldwell, she says, nodding to me. I'm Assistant U.S. Attorney Diane Reston. I've reviewed the evidence your legal team provided. The case against Dr. Greer and your son is substantial. She sets her briefcase on the table and opens it, pulling out document packets sealed with federal court stamps. However, she continues, turning to face Thane, Vivienne, and Simone. The U.S. Attorney's Office is prepared to offer limited immunity to co-conspirators who cooperate fully. Thane looks up, desperate hope flickering across his face. Immunity. Conditional immunity, Diane corrects sharply. The evidence against you as knowing participants is substantial. Sign these waivers relinquishing all claims to Mrs. Caldwell's assets and the trust, and will decline to prosecute. Refuse, and you'll face federal indictment within 48 hours. Conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement, and attempted elder abuse. She slides 3 document packets across the table, one for Thane, one for Vivienne, one for Simone. What's in these? Vivienne asks, her voice small. Total waivers of any claim to the Caldwell estate, Caldwell Maritime Holdings, or the family trust, plus sworn statements acknowledging your awareness of the conspiracy and non-disclosure agreements preventing you from discussing any details of this case publicly. The waivers aren't merely financial, they're permanent silencing orders. Sign away everything and never speak of it again or face decades in federal prison. The burglary footage, Ms. Shelton, suggests you were far from an innocent bystander. Diane says to Vivian, "You have 5 minutes to decide." Thane picks up the pen with shaking hands. I watch my son, the boy I raised, the man who tried to erase me, read through the waiver that ends everything he schemed for. He looks at me across the table. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "God, Mother, I'm so sorry." But sorry doesn't undo 22 years of theft. Sorry doesn't erase the basement burglary or the bribery or the plan to lock me in a psychiatric facility for the rest of my life. Thane signs. His hand shakes so badly the signature barely resembles his name. Vivienne picks up her pen next, crying silently. Tears drip onto the paper as she signs away any claim to the money she tried to steal the house. She burglarized the trust she thought would save them. I watch my daughter-in-law and my son sign away their futures with pens I bought them for their college graduations, and I feel no satisfaction, only the cold, clean certainty of survival. Simone Shelton sits frozen, staring at the waiver like it's a death sentence. Then something in her breaks. She stands abruptly, chair scraping across the floor. "You orchestrated this," she screams at me. "You wanted us destroyed. What kind of mother?" "The kind who refused to let her children steal her life," I say calmly. Simone's composure, the professional attorney's control she's maintained for 62 years, shatters completely. She picks up the pen and signs with violent strokes that tear the paper, her rage manifesting in every stroke. Diane Reston collects the signed waivers, examining each signature. "These are legally binding. You've waived all claims. The non-disclosure agreements are enforceable. If you violate them, the immunity agreement is void." Beatrix Harlow stands at the head of the table. Before this board meeting concludes, I move to remove Thane Caldwell from all positions within Caldwell Maritime, and this board effective immediately. "Second," says Michael Bennett. "All in favor?" Beatrix asks. Every hand rises, unanimous. Edmund didn't just protect me from Thane. He protected me from my own mercy, knowing I would hesitate at this moment if the choice were mine alone. I stand slowly facing the board members who just voted, facing my son who just signed away his future, facing the family that tried to destroy me. "You thought I was weak because I was quiet," I say, my voice carrying across the silent boardroom. "You mistook patience for passivity, and that mistake cost you everything." Agent Morrison gestures toward the door. "Mr. Caldwell, Ms. Shelton. Ms. Shelton, you're free to leave. Don't contact Mrs. Caldwell. Don't approach her property. The waiver includes a restraining order." Thane walks to the door, shoulders slumped, defeated. Vivian follows, still crying. Simone goes last, turning back to look at me one final time with pure hatred before disappearing into the hallway. The boardroom empties. Dr. Greer is gone in handcuffs. My children are escorted to separate cars by federal agents. 3 weeks later, I learned Conrad had cooperated fully with federal prosecutors. In exchange for his testimony documenting Edmund's instructions and Thane's crimes, he received immunity. He moved to Atlanta. I never saw him again, but I understood why Edmund trusted him. Some people document wrongdoing not because they are brave, but because they cannot live with silence. And I stand alone at the head of the table Edmund built 40 years ago, holding 3 signed waivers that cost me my family and saved my life. 5 days after the boardroom, I sit in the state prosecutor's office and watch my son agree to terms that will exile him from Charleston forever. Thane sits across from Assistant District Attorney Marcus Beaumont, 52, a career prosecutor with silver hair and the measured tone of someone who's seen every variety of human failure. Dalton Pierce sits beside me. The room smells like old coffee and fluorescent light. "Mr. Caldwell," Beaumont says, sliding a document across the table. "Your cooperation with the federal investigation, combined with your mother's willingness not to pursue additional civil remedies, allows us to offer these terms. You will repay the full amount, $473,000, over 10 years. You will surrender your South Carolina business licenses. You will accept a permanent prohibition from serving as an officer or director of any corporation registered in this state. Thane's hands shake as he signs. He doesn't look at me. And, Beaumont continues, you will relocate outside South Carolina within 60 days. Any return to Charleston for longer than 72 consecutive hours will constitute a violation of your probation. Exile. Edmund built that into the legal architecture 20 years ago, knowing exactly how to use Carolina's complex corporate statutes to turn cooperation into banishment. My son signs his name 4 times. Each signature costs him a piece of the life he tried to steal from me. We're done here, Beaumont says. Thane stands. For one moment he looks at me, really looks at me, and I see the boy he was before ambition hollowed him out. Then he's gone. 2 days later, I sit in the State Medical Board hearing room on Calhoun Street and watch Dr. Bradford Greer lose everything that made him dangerous. The board chairman, Dr. Helena Vargas, 58, a pediatric oncologist with steel-rimmed glasses, reads the findings. Dr. Greer, your deliberate falsification of psychiatric evaluations, your acceptance of bribes to alter patient records, and your participation in a conspiracy to have Mrs. Caldwell involuntarily committed constitute gross violations of medical ethics. Your license to practice medicine in South Carolina is hereby permanently revoked. Your testimony to federal authorities does not mitigate the harm you intended to inflict on a vulnerable patient. Greer's lawyer tries to object. Vargas cuts him off with a look. You used the tools of healing to participate in abuse, she says. There is no rehabilitation from that. We're done. Greer leaves through a side door. I never see his face again. That afternoon, Clementine Shelton appears at the mansion unannounced. She's 78, not 64, as I'd assumed Simone lied about her mother's age the way she lies about everything. Clementine walks with a cane, her face carved by decades of hard Southern propriety. She sits in Edmund's study without being invited. Mrs. Caldwell. She says, her voice tight with shame. I came to apologize for my daughter and my granddaughter. What they did, what they tried to do, it's unforgivable. I raised Simone better than this, or thought I did. I've severed all financial ties with them both. They won't use my name or my resources again. You didn't have to come here, I say. Yes, I did. Her hands grip the cane. Because you deserved better. And because I need to say it to your face, I'm sorry. Edmund was a good man. You're a strong woman. And my family failed you both. She leaves before I can respond. Her apology hangs in the air like smoke. How do you measure the weight of an apology that arrives after the damage is already catastrophic? The final expulsion happens on November 30th, 10 days after the prosecutor's office, 2 weeks after the boardroom. Simone and Vivian pack their belongings under the supervision of 2 private security guards Dalton hired. Vivian moves through the guest wing, methodically packing designer clothes into suitcases without speaking. Simone stands in the foyer giving orders like she still owns the place. Those paintings are mine, she says, pointing at the low-country watercolors in the hall. No, I say. They're Edmund's. Everything in this house belongs to the trust. Simone's face goes white with rage. You think you've won. You've destroyed your own family. Your son will never forgive you. Your granddaughter will grow up knowing you chose money over blood. I chose truth, I say. Edmund spent 22 years giving me the tools to do it. I just had the courage he hoped I'd find. That's when Vivian appears at the top of the stairs, one hand resting on her stomach in a gesture I recognize instantly. We're leaving, Vivian says quietly. All 3 of us. The twist lands like a slap. She's pregnant. My 3rd grandchild growing inside a woman I'm exiling from my home. Simone sees my face change and smiles cold, triumphant. Still feel righteous? Simone asks. I don't answer. The security guards escort them both to the front door. Simone turns back once, her expression a mixture of fury and something that might be grief. Then they're gone down the steps into a black sedan that idles in the circular drive. I watch the car disappear down the oak-lined driveway. Vivian's pregnant. I'm going to have a grandchild I may never meet, raised by people who tried to destroy me, carrying the Caldwell name into a future I can't control. I close the door. The mansion is mine again, fully legally, permanently. 18 rooms, 40 years of memories, and the crushing silence of a house that feels less like a home and more like an expensive prison I built with my husband's ghost. 10 days after closing the mansion door on my daughter-in-law, I walk into Caldwell Maritime headquarters as the sole surviving Caldwell, and for the first time in my life, no one questions my right to be here. The boardroom is exactly as Edmund left it. Mahogany table, brass ship's clock on the wall, the smell of old leather and salt air drifting through windows that overlook Charleston Harbor. But when I step through the door, something shifts. Every board member stands. Beatrix Harlow stands at the head of the table, a folder of documents in her hands. Beside her is Claire Ashby, 32, a paralegal with wire-rimmed glasses and the efficient posture of someone who's spent a decade recording board proceedings without missing a syllable. She nods once, respectful, not deferential. "Mrs. Caldwell." Beatrix says, her voice carrying the formality of ceremony. "The board is ready to proceed with your formal reinstatement." "Thank you, Beatrix." I take my seat not at the foot where I used to sit during Edmund's meetings, but at the head. Let's begin. Wren opens her laptop. Beatrix slides the folder across the table. And then Beatrix says something I don't expect. "The board voted 3 days ago," she says quietly. "Unanimously. This meeting is ceremonial, Harriet. We wanted you to experience the restoration formally, the way Edmund would have insisted. The twist lands soft but deliberate. They voted without me. They decided I deserved this. And they waited to tell me because dignity requires witnesses. Thank you," I say again, and this time my voice cracks just slightly. Wren Ashby speaks for the first time. All documents are notarized and ready for signature. Miles Ashford enters before I can respond. He's 55, Conrad Ashford's younger brother, a forensic accountant, with silver temples and the wary eyes of someone who spent the last month untangling his brother's complicity. He carries a leather portfolio and sets it on the table without ceremony. "Mrs. Caldwell," he says, and there's something apologetic in his tone, not for himself, but for the brother who betrayed us both. "I have the final forensic audit report." He opens the portfolio. Pages of financial statements, wire transfer records, spreadsheets mapping 4 years of hemorrhaging that Thane orchestrated and Conrad enabled. "Your son was siphoning approximately $120,000 annually for 4 years, Miles says. His voice is clinical, but I hear the weight beneath it. "With those leaks sealed, the company is extraordinarily healthy. Caldwell Maritime is worth $47 million more than anyone realized under Thane's management. $47 million. Edmund built something that could survive even our son. Edmund built something that could survive even our son," I say aloud. Beatrix nods. "Now it's yours to protect." Miles closes the portfolio. My brother's resignation stands. He won't contest it. He knows what he enabled. "Thank you, Miles," I say, and I mean it. There's a strange grace in a man willing to audit his own brother's crimes. He leaves. The door clicks shut, and the boardroom feels smaller now, intimate, like a space where truth can finally breathe. Beatrix stands. We'll proceed with the formal vote. Is this what victory feels like? A boardroom full of allies, a company secured absolute power, and a silence so profound I can hear my own heartbeat echoing in the space where my family used to be. Beatrix's voice cuts through the thought. "All in favor of granting Mrs. Harriet Caldwell sole and absolute authority as chairperson, CEO, and trustee of Caldwell Maritime and the Caldwell Family Trust, with no co-signers, no oversight, and no limitations, say aye." "Aye," the board says in unison. The word hangs in the air. Aye. A single syllable that rewrites 40 years of being someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's accessory. I accept this responsibility. I say, and my voice is steady now, Edmund trusted me to protect what he built. I won't fail him again. Wren records the vote. Beatrix slides the final document across the table, a single page, with my name at the top and a signature line at the bottom. I sign it with Edmund's fountain pen, the one he used to sign our marriage certificate 42 years ago. Authority feels heavier than I expected. The board disperses. Beatrix squeezes my shoulder once before she leaves. Wren closes her laptop and follows. And then I'm alone in the boardroom with nothing but the ticking of the brass clock and the weight of what I've just become. I walk down the hall to Edmund's private office. The door is unlocked. Inside, everything is exactly as he left it. Leather, blotter, brass lamp, fountain pen resting in its holder. The desk faces the window overlooking the harbor. 47 ships bearing the Caldwell name. 40 years of his decisions pressed into wood and leather and ink. I sit in his chair. The leather creaks. The chair is too big for me, or maybe I've spent so long being small that sitting here feels like wearing someone else's skin. But then I adjust. I lean back. I rest my hands on the armrests. And something shifts. I'm not filling Edmund's space. I'm creating my own. In the desk drawer, I find a sealed envelope. My name is written across the front in Edmund's careful script for Harriet, December 2023. December 2023. He wrote this months ago, years ago, decades ago. I open it. My darling Harriet, if you're reading this, you did what I always knew you could do. You were never weak. You were strategic. And now you're free. I've updated this letter every month for 22 years, always predicting the exact month you'd find it. Not because I'm clairvoyant, but because I knew exactly when the conspiracy would reach critical mass based on trust distribution schedules, Thane's spending velocity, and the compound interest of your patience. You won because I built you a trap that could only be sprung by someone willing to wait for the perfect moment. You won because you're the only person I ever trusted to understand that survival isn't about fighting harder. It's about choosing when to let your enemy destroy himself. The company is yours. The trust is yours. The rest of your life is yours. Don't waste it mourning what we lost. Build something new. Love, Edmund. I fold the letter and place it in my jacket pocket. Then I turn his chair to face the window overlooking Charleston Harbor. 47 ships bearing the Caldwell name, a $23 million estate, absolute authority, and no one left to share it with. Except Edmund somehow predicted this exact moment 22 years ago. And I realize with perfect clarity that the final chapter of this story isn't about what I won. It's about who I'll become now that the war is over. 3 weeks after taking Edmund's chair, I stand before Charleston Press and announce the Edmund Caldwell Legal Defense Fund, $11 million dedicated to protecting the elderly from the exact conspiracy my son used against me. The Caldwell Maritime Conference Room is packed. Cameras line the back wall. Reporters fill every seat. Beatrix Harlow stands beside me, her hand resting on a stack of legal documents. Wren Ashby sits at the side table recording every word. A reporter from the Post and Courier raises her hand. Mrs. Caldwell, is this fund a response to your son's actions? This fund exists because what happened to me happens to thousands of elderly people every year, I say. My voice is steady. Guardianship fraud, medical exploitation, family members conspiring to declare their parents incompetent and seize their assets. Edmund's money will protect them. Another reporter leans forward. You're seeding the fund with the entire $11 million trust your son attempted to steal. Is that symbolic? It's practical, I say. The money he betrayed me for will now protect people who have no one to fight for them. Edmund would have wanted that. Beatrix steps to the microphone. Mrs. Caldwell is turning a family tragedy into a national resource. The Edmund Caldwell Legal Defense Fund will provide free legal representation to elderly victims of financial exploitation. We anticipate serving 200 families in the first year. The cameras flash. Questions overlap. And I feel something I haven't felt since Edmund died, purpose replacing the emptiness. When the press leaves, Wren closes her laptop and looks at me with the careful expression of someone weighing a dangerous question. Do you think you'll ever speak to your children again? She asks. I sit in the chair Edmund used for 40 years of board meetings. The leather is worn smooth. The armrests bear the imprint of his hands. I don't know, I say, But I know Edmund didn't save me so I could spend the rest of my life hating them. He saved me so I could do this, turn his 22-year plan into something that matters beyond our family. Wren nods slowly. Then let me help you honor him. I'll run this fund. I look at her, this 32-year-old paralegal who spent the last month recording my restoration with the precision of someone who understands that history requires witnesses. Why, I ask? Because I watched you survive something that destroys most people, she says. And I want to help others do the same. Then the job is yours. Was Edmund's 22-year plan an act of love or an act of control? Driving alone to Kiowa Island that evening, I finally understand it was both, and neither matters more than the fact that it saved my life. The beach house looks exactly as we left it last summer. White shutters, blue door, the smell of salt and sun-warmed wood. I unlock the door and walk straight to the bedroom, to the biometric safe that started everything. I place my palm on the scanner. The safe opens. Inside is Edmund's journal, the one I found buried beneath legal documents and surveillance equipment 3 months ago. I've read it a dozen times, but tonight I bring it to the beach. The sun is setting. The water turns copper, then gold, then something darker. I sit on the sand and open the journal to a page I've memorized but never fully understood. September 2001. If Harriet is reading this, the children tried. The safe will spring. Trust the plan. Protect her the way no one protected me. Protect her the way no one protected me. I turn back to an earlier entry, one I skipped the first time because the date seemed irrelevant. March 1984, my brother tried to have me declared incompetent today. He hired a psychiatrist, filed guardianship papers, said I was delusional after the shipyard accident. I fought for 18 months, lost $2 million in legal fees, nearly lost the company, nearly lost everything. Harriet will never know this. She'll never have to, because I'm building something that will protect her if anyone, even our children, tries what Richard tried. The journal falls open to another page. January 1995. Thane is 13. Already lying about money, already testing boundaries. I see Richard in him, the entitlement, the impatience, the willingness to take what isn't his. I'm building the trap now. It will take 20 years to arm, but when it springs, Harriet will have everything she needs to survive. I close the journal and walk to the water's edge. The waves wash over my feet, cold, relentless, indifferent. The biometric safe was never a vault. It was a snare trap with a time-delayed spring waiting for the exact moment someone would reach for what wasn't theirs. Edmund's own brother betrayed him. He fought alone. He nearly lost everything. And he spent the next 20 years ensuring I would never face the same fate defenseless. He didn't leave me an inheritance. He left me a weapon. He left me evidence. He left me time. The sun disappears into the Atlantic. The sky turns purple, then indigo, then the deep velvet black of a Carolina winter night. Stars appear one by one, the same stars Edmund and I watched from this beach for 40 summers. I hold the journal against my chest and speak to the ocean. I'm 61 years old, and I'm finally the woman you always believed I could be. The waves answer with their ancient rhythm. The wind carries the smell of salt and distance. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. I stand at the water's edge as the last light fades, holding Edmund's journal pages filled with calculations, predictions, and a love so fierce it built a 22-year trap to catch the people who would try to destroy me. Edmund didn't leave me money. He left me a trap to save my life. And standing here at 61, finally free, I realize the greatest gift he gave me wasn't protection. It was the belief that I was worth protecting. And to you listening to my story, remember this surviving isn't the same as living, and sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let someone destroy you. I spent 40 years protecting my son from consequences. Every lie I overlooked, every warning I dismissed, every moment I chose peace over truth. I was teaching him that betrayal had no cost. Don't make my mistake. When someone shows you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. Protecting your family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of their comfort. I think about Vivian's child sometimes, the grandchild I may never meet, growing up somewhere I don't know, carrying a name built on 40 years of integrity and 22 years of betrayal. I made my peace with that. Edmund taught me you cannot protect people from the consequences of their own choices. You can only protect yourself from becoming collateral damage. Edmund didn't spend 22 years building a trap to hurt our son. He did it because he loved me enough to ensure I'd survive what he barely survived himself. I believe God put Edmund in my life not just as a husband, but as a guardian who saw threats I couldn't see. People call this grandma revenge, but it wasn't vengeance, it was survival. And knowing that difference saved my life. If this story moved you, leave a comment below. Tell me, would you have done what I did, or would you have protected your child at any cost? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Her Family Revenge. Your support means everything to me. Thank you for staying until the very end. This story contains fictionalized elements created for reflection and learning. What I hope you take with you isn't the specifics of my revenge, but the reminder that you are worth protecting even from the people you love most.